Chapter 141. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Chief Manager was naturally overthinking things. But the situation Chinyu was facing right now was indeed extremely difficult. His divine sense was fighting with others, and his complexion gradually darkened. Just as he arrived at the edge of the altar, a powerhouse had sneak attacked him. At the time, Chinyu hadn't thought too much about it, because Old C had told him that this sort of thing would happen in order to suppress his opponents. Although it was rare, it still happened in every competition. Strictly speaking, it didn't violate the rules of the competition. Since competing for the sea spirit was a competition, there was nothing one couldn't do. All one cared about was the result, not the process. But now, when his divine sense wrapped around the tray and pulled it closer to his eyes, two strands of divine sense suddenly jumped out, forcing him to think more. Of these two divine senses, he was somewhat familiar with one of them. It was the person who had ambushed him earlier. The other strand was slightly weaker, yet it was extremely cold. It seemed to have cultivated some sort of mysterious technique, causing divine sense to actually become sluggish when colliding with it. It was rather troublesome to deal with. If they were joining forces to steal the sea spirit, then that would have been fine. But the problem was that these two people didn't care about the tray at all. They were only blindly attacking his divine sense. They were simply aiming for him. If it weren't for the fact that Chinyu's soul was powerful enough, then his soul would have been greatly damaged under the joint attack of the two, and he would have been forced to withdraw from the competition. Chinyu's thoughts raced. The first people he thought of were Blue Sky Tower and Earth Fault Spire. These were two formidable sea spirit influences. Because of his existence, they had suffered a great loss, so it was reasonable for them to retaliate. Thinking back to when Old High was ambushed, it didn't take him long to figure out the crux of the matter. Someone thought he was a hindrance and wanted to get rid of him in advance. A cold light flashed in Chinyu's eyes. He spread out his divine sense that was wrapped around the tray. The other sea spirit teachers were overjoyed. They thought that Chinyu was tired and had no choice but to let go, so they hurriedly spread out their divine sense. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 divine senses tangled together and collided with each other. The tray swayed as it flew away. Although no one could take it away for a time, they had a tacit understanding to keep it as far away from Chinyu as possible. The two attacking divine senses paused for a moment, as if they never imagined that Chinyu would simply give up on the tray. In the next moment, a cold chill rose up in their hearts. The altar tray was a special treasure. It could withstand the pressure of a powerful divine sense and also protect the sea spirit from damage. Dragging it required a great deal of strength. In addition, there were many other sea spirit teachers that had rushed over to take advantage of the situation. This had tied up too much of Chinyu's strength. At this moment, he let go of the tray, which was equivalent to freeing himself. Bang! His boundless divine will was like a tidal wave, brazenly rushing towards the two divine wills that he had previously injured. Two tyrannical divine senses collided together. A deep explosion sounded out in the void, clearly spreading throughout Prosperity Square. Countless sea folk gasped, their jaws dropping open. Divine sense shaking the void was a strength that only those at the nascent soul realm possessed. It represented the sublimation of the illusory into reality. But now, the divine senses of two sea spirit teachers had actually produced such an effect. Didn't that mean that their souls were so powerful that they approached the nascent soul realm? Countless gazes looked towards the source of the voice and quickly locked onto the two fighting. Black robes fluttered without any wind, and an aura rose around them. Not far away, a skinny old man vomited a few mouthfuls of blood, his complexion pale. This black-robed figure had recently been in the limelight of the capital city. Almost everyone instantly recognized him as the chief sea spirit teacher of Sea Spirit Pavilion. Countless people sighed. Grandmaster Ning, truly lived up to his name. For him to have such fierce methods, his soul was naturally extremely strong. As they looked at the old man who was vomiting blood, they couldn't help but reveal a look of pity. Of all the people he could have provoked, he had to provoke this person. As they were secretly sighing for him, they saw the skinny old man's eyes suddenly widen. So much strength actually caused the tiny blood vessels in his eyes to burst open, causing his eyes to turn crimson red. This was a sign that his soul had been stimulated to the extreme. Countless sea folk were frightened. This was only a competition, not a life or death grudge. So was there really a need to go all out like this? The crushed divine sense immediately rushed up once more. Without any scruples, it crazily bombarded Chinyu, stubbornly holding him back. At the same time, another cold divine sense swam about like an icy snake, ruthlessly piercing into Chinyu's divine sense. An extremely cold aura constantly poured in. It was actually able to use the divine sense as a channel to invade Chinyu's body. Kacha, kacha! A layer of black ice rapidly condensed on the surface of the black robes. Even from far away, one could still feel the terrifying cold aura it contained. Chief Manager Wu angrily shouted, "This is murder! This is naked murder! Where are the people from the competition committee? I demand that the competition be stopped immediately." With his eyesight, how could he not see that besides the skinny old man, there was another sea spirit teacher that was crazily attacking Chinyu? This sort of situation absolutely wouldn't occur in a normal competition. As he thought of old C's injuries, his entire body turned icy cold. He no longer cared about maintaining his composure and angrily waved his arms and roared. The competition committee staff member who was responsible for maintaining order on the competition field had a flustered look on his face, asking this important figure to maintain restraint. As he was spat on, he paled in fright and hurriedly used a spirit shell to report this matter. Outside the competition field, the sea folk watching the competition also noticed something was wrong. Loud boos swept through the entire square like a tsunami. But with the competition having reached this step, there were already sea spirit teachers who had exhausted all methods to seize the sea spirits on the trays. If they were to stop the competition now, they would definitely be opposed. So at this time, the competition committee members were arguing with each other. The decision to stop the competition still hadn't been made. Chief Manager Wu clenched his teeth. He turned and rushed towards the competition committee members. Soon, there was a loud explosion. It was clear that a fierce conflict had occurred. For a time, the scene was in chaos. Beneath his black robes, Chinyu's eyes flashed open. He could feel an icy cold growing in his soul, and his eyes were cold. This was no longer stopping him, but severely wounding him or even killing him. No matter who the mastermind behind the scenes was, they had successfully enraged Chinyu. Within his Dantian Sea, the 16-sided crystal suddenly erupted with a blazing light, like a sun rising from the earth. Chinyu's eyes turned crimson. It wasn't blood red, but tumbling waves of blood like blazing flames. Not too far away, a handsome and young sea spirit teacher suddenly screamed out in pain, his face filled with fear. Who? Blazing flames gushed out from his head. These flames weren't real, but were the manifestation of a burning aura. Their killing might was even more terrifying. In an instant, this sea spirit teacher's flesh was scorched. The bubble wrapped around him shrank and wrapped around him, extinguishing the flames with it. The competition committee members reacted quickly. Someone immediately rushed over and dragged him back. They inadvertently touched his body and grimaced in pain. The ambulance wasn't too far away. The healer was experienced and knowledgeable. But as he saw the sea spirit teacher's burned appearance, he couldn't help but feel his scalp tingle. He put on sterilizing gloves. After inspecting the sea spirit teacher, he revealed a sympathetic expression and waved his hand for them to carry him away. No matter how terrifying the mortal injuries were, as long as one was willing to pay the price, they could be healed. But what was terrifying was his soul. It was like an eggplant roasted over fire, shriveled up into a ball. It was unknown whether or not he would be able to maintain his sanity in the future, much less continue being a sea spirit teacher. This person had been thoroughly crippled. The skinny old man's face was filled with fear. He fiercely retracted his divine sense, wanting to break away from Qin Yu's slaughter. But it was already too late for him to leave. Boundless divine sense divided into several strands, each one carrying with it a searing heat. They were like invisible flame blades that instantly cut apart his divine sense. Puff! The skinny old man spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. The competition committee members didn't have time to rest. They rushed over and dragged him away. After the healer inspected him, his condition was better than the previous one, but he would still be unable to avoid the fire poison invading his soul for the rest of his life, and he would die in pain. If that was the case, it was not as good as the previous one, who would be able to suffer less. Pah! Outside his black robe, the black ice shattered into pieces. Qin Yu looked around, like a tiger sitting on a high mountain. Wherever he went, the sound of gulping filled the air. The divine senses that were fiercely fighting for the tray all withdrew in the blink of an eye. With everyone watching, Qin Yu slowly pulled the tray into his hand. No one dared to fight for it. The nearby sea spirit teachers nearly cried. Holy shit, just who was this fellow? How could he be so ruthless? This was only a competition, so was there a need to play around with others until they were crippled? As for those that were far away, they let out long breaths of relief. They rejoiced that they weren't the ones that bumped into this ruthless person. Fuck, these were two high-level sea spirit teachers. But in just a short period of time, they had both died, let alone the participating sea spirit teachers. Even the spectating sea folk of the capital city were left dumbfounded. They had originally been dissatisfied that Qin Yu had been attacked from all sides, but now all of them had their mouths tightly shut. Well, they had indeed made an error in judgment just now. If this person was so vicious and evil, then provoking him was the same as seeking death. With the tray in hand, the air bubble automatically fell down, sending Qin Yu away from the range of the altar. Just as he took several steps, a group of sea folk rushed over. The old turtle man in the lead was sweating profusely. He took out a handkerchief from time to time to wipe his sweat, but he couldn't keep up with the speed at which it gushed out. His originally dignified and magnificent committee member robes were now sticking to his body, leaving him in an extremely distressed state. Wait, don't go yet. A group of sea folk gathered around. Qin Yu turned around, his voice cold. What is it? The Turtle Clan committee members' aura stagnated. Everyone had seen what happened just now. Although he had been a bit ruthless, it was absolutely self-defense. But this matter was far too vile. Ever since the beginning of the Sea Spirit Teacher competition, besides the first few chaotic times and the change in the capital city, there had never been a case where two high-level Sea Spirit teachers were crippled. If they weren't punished, and everyone was like this in the future, how could the competition continue to be held? The Turtle Clan committee member's eyes turned. He said in a low voice, Sea Spirit Teacher, you are suspected of using a treasure that violates the rules in the competition and causing serious injuries to others. I ask that you temporarily suspend the competition and return with us to be investigated. Before Qin Yu could respond, a chair came flying through the air and smashed into the Turtle Clan committee member's head. Luckily, he had retreated quickly enough so that his tortoise shell didn't suffer any damage. Otherwise, he would have been badly battered. Chief Manager Wu led the Sea Spirit teachers from Sea Spirit Pavilion over. Before he even arrived, he was already cursing out loud. Investigate? I will investigate your face. If you want to investigate, then investigate those two damned Sea Spirit teacher scum and find out just who ordered them to attack Mr. Ning. Without waiting for the Turtle Clan committee member to speak, Chief Manager Wu continued to roar, Mr. Ning is very tired right now and his condition is very poor. If your actions cause him to have an abnormal performance in the next competition, then I can tell you with certainty that all of you will be finished. Just wait for Sea Spirit Pavilion's court summons. Believe me, if I don't sue you until you all go bankrupt and I have to beg for the rest of my life, I will never rest. Hashtag, 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 it was the end of the month. Chapter 142. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go? Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. The councilman's face immediately paled, and he began to sweat profusely. Chief Caretaker Wu, it's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding. We are only doing our duty and must clearly investigate this matter. Love, go small, say Netku. We do need to investigate and see just who it is that dares to brazenly attack Sea Spirit Pavilion's chief, Sea Spirit teacher in front of everyone. Mr. Gudra, please open your eyes wide and look at what day it is today. Not only is this a provocation to Sea Spirit Pavilion, but it is the greatest blasphemy and affront to the sea spirits themselves. Chief Manager Wu aggressively glared at Qin Yu. Mr. Ning, you only have a day to treat this sea spirit. Please do not delay any further and leave everything here to me. Committee member Gudra still wanted to say something, but he was immediately stopped by his angry roar. Let's go now. I want to find the committee members and get justice. The pitiful and shriveled committee member Gudra was dragged away by Chief Manager Wu. His feeble rebuttals could still be heard from afar, but they were immediately crushed into pieces by an even louder roar. The 20 coral tree houses were prepared for the sea spirit teachers that managed to obtain a sea spirit. The entrances were guarded by the sea folk, and as they saw Qin Yu walk over, they were at a loss as to what to do. The cold eyes beneath the black robe helped them make their choice. The two sea folk trembled and retreated to the side. Although this job paid well, it was far from enough for them to risk their lives for it. Qin Yu stepped in. With a flick of his sleeves, he closed the door, isolating all auras from the outside world. This sort of coral house was directly carved out of a giant coral. Because of the special materials used, it was an excellent array formation material that could isolate all outside prying eyes. It was specially prepared to protect the privacy of high-level sea spirit teachers. Although Old Sea had said that the coral house had been thoroughly inspected before it could be used, there shouldn't be any problems. Even so, Qin Yu still carefully inspected it with his divine sense. After determining that there weren't any problems, he took out a black stone. This was a special stone that the sea race called the Silent Stone. It could completely seal off all qi within a radius of 10 feet, not letting even the slightest bit leak out. After completing this, Qin Yu sat down cross-legged and casually laid down the disc. He took out a pill and swallowed it, closing his eyes to cultivate. That's right. Under the gazes of everyone present, the ferocious Qin Yu, who had crippled 2 high-level sea spirit teachers, was currently cultivating. The reason was simple. It was daytime and the little blue lamp was sleeping. At this time, the competition outside was still in full swing. Sea spirits were taken away one after another, and as the number of trays decreased, the competition became increasingly fierce. 2 hours later, over 20 sea spirit teachers had been forced to withdraw from the competition due to severe soul damage. The sea spirit teachers that had successfully seized a sea spirit no longer cared about recovering from their wounds. They swallowed down some medicines to suppress their injuries and immerse themselves in their work. Chief Manager Wu stood like a crane in a flock of chickens. He stood at the end of the round conference table, engaging in a war of words with a group of competition committee members. He didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. However, the back of his robe was already soaked with sweat. It could be seen that as he sneered and cursed, he was under incredible pressure. The Sea Spirit Teacher Competition Committee represented the strength behind them. Even with his status, it was difficult for him to deal with them. Luckily, it was a fact that Qin Yu had fought back in self-defense. Even if his methods were a bit violent, it was still barely justifiable. As they were fiercely arguing, Soothing music began to spread out from Chief Manager Wu's chest. He took out a spirit shell and placed it to his ear, a respectful expression on his face. The several committee members who didn't want to let this matter blow up and use Qin as a model suddenly lowered their voices. With Chief Manager Wu's status, the only person that could make him act like this was that noble lady from Sega City who had left the capital city for 70 years and hadn't returned once. Yes, I understand. I am currently explaining things to the committee members. Yes, I understand. Please wait a moment. Chief Manager Wu looked up. Chairman Su, my family's mistress has something to say to you. Chairman Su's eyebrows arched up. He calmly received the spirit shell and walked several steps away. He began to speak in a low voice with the noblest and most powerful woman in the sea region. From time to time, there would be light chuckles. It was clear they were chatting happily. After a moment, the conversation ended. Chairman Su returned the spirit shell and returned to his seat. Everyone, we are currently in the finals. In order to ensure the fairness of the competition, shouldn't we temporarily suppress this matter and wait until the end to investigate? Several committee members cursed inwardly. If the competition ended and the committee was dismissed, how would they investigate? They glanced at each other and could see the helplessness in their hearts. And, as expected, a group of neutral committee members immediately expressed their support for Chairman Su's idea. As for the committee members that had spoken up for him, they all quieted down. Seeing this, several committee members had gloomy expressions. They lowered their heads, not saying a word. Chief Manager Wu silently praised the mistress 99 times in his heart. Although she hadn't been in the capital city for many years, her fame still spread far and wide. With a single spirit shell, she had immediately reversed the situation. He cupped his hands across his chest, his face cold and arrogant as he bid his farewells. Then his complexion darkened. He turned and gave some orders. A sea spirit pavilion cultivator hurried away. Even the mistress had been alarmed and had no choice but to intervene. It seemed that the one who had secretly acted this time was a powerful character. If so, then it was clear that this other party's goal was the purple card sea spirit teachers. Only such a massive harvest could drive such a powerful character to the point of becoming enemies with Sea Spirit Pavilion. He looked up at the coral house where Qin was. Chief Manager Wu took a deep breath. Now he could only place his hopes on Mr. Ning. If he could win, then he could slowly investigate this matter. Otherwise, once Old Sea's position was lost, there would surely be a chain reaction that would set off and things would become truly troublesome. Time slowly passed. The first sea spirit teacher to successfully heal a sea spirit emerged from the coral house nearly 6 hours ago and took away the first promotion spot. Afterwards, every once in a while, another sea spirit teacher would appear. Those that came out ahead of time had already solved their problems, and those that hadn't were still working hard. Qin, you wasn't one of them. It wasn't just Chief Manager Wu, but also the majority of the people present. With the release of the special edition of the Supreme Book, Grandmaster Ning's reputation had spread far and wide. There were even some busybodies that called him the #1 sea spirit teacher beneath the purple cards. But now, 6 out of the 20 spots had been taken. The #1 sea spirit teacher beneath the purple cards, Grandmaster Ning, still hadn't shown himself. Had he encountered a problem, or had he been injured in the battle to cripple 2 high-level sea spirit teachers? There were many sea folk that were inclined towards the latter. After all, killing 2 sea boars required a great deal of effort, much less 2 high-level sea spirit teachers with formidable souls. The human race had an old saying that killing 1,000 enemies would damage 800 of one's own. This was quite reasonable. Chief Manager Wu's complexion darkened. His body was so cold that it seemed as if it would freeze over at any moment. In the entire Sea Spirit Pavilion area, the sound of breathing became much quieter. Qing was anxious. Although she didn't know too much, she knew that the relationship between Grandmaster Ning and Leon was destined to be one of them. If he were a purple card, then her mother absolutely wouldn't interfere in the matters between her and Leon. In fact, she might even vigorously promote them. But on the other hand, the result might be completely different. Although she was simple, she didn't lack wisdom. She could clearly see through all of this. She swept her eyes over. Leon was actually daydreaming. After knowing him for so long, she absolutely couldn't be wrong. He was daydreaming, and he was completely and utterly gone. His eyes were empty, and his mouth was slightly open. From time to time, it would move a few times, as if he were saying something in a low voice. Ching-Ching immediately puckered her lips and stomped down. Leon cried out in pain, his face filled with grievance. He had no idea how he had offended this girl, but she had actually stomped down so heavily. In the quiet environment, this miserable cry was particularly clear. All eyes that were focused on Spirit Pavilion were instantly drawn over, as they saw a young man and woman playing around. Their lips couldn't help but twitch. Ching-Ching's face flushed red. She lowered her head in embarrassment, but she didn't forget to glare at him. It was all this blockhead's fault for causing her to lose face. Chief Manager Wu's complexion was ugly. As Mr. Ning's disciple, in such a critical moment, he was actually so indifferent and even had the mood to play around. This was simply outrageous. Just as he was about to reprimand Leon, his thoughts stirred and he softened his tone. Leon, Mr. Ning still hasn't come out. Aren't you worried? Ching-Ching's heart tightened. She quickly looked up. Leon had a blank expression. He looked at the ghostly blue time-sensitive coral and whispered, "So it's already been a day." "No wonder I'm so tired." Seeing Chief Manager Wu's unhappy expression, Ching-Ching clenched her teeth and said, "If Mr. Ning doesn't come out soon, he will fail." Leon scratched his head. It shouldn't be. With teacher strength, it should be easy for him to deal with the competition. He glanced at the coral house. "Chief Manager, have you sent someone to open the door?" Teacher might have overslept. Overslept? Was this fellow really Mr. Ning's disciple? After not seeing him for such a short period of time, he had actually activated his silly side. Chief Manager Wu grit his teeth. Seeing that the time was almost up, he stamped his feet and walked towards the coral house. In any case, the time was almost up. Even if he failed, he still needed to know just what had gone wrong. The two competition committee guards saw his pale complexion and hesitated, not daring to stop him. They had all seen how Mr. Gudra had been struck with a chair. If he even dared to beat up a committee member, then there was no need to mention them. Moreover, if someone wanted to disturb him, it would be someone from Spirit Pavilion. They could just let him be. Standing in front of the door, Chief Manager Wu took a deep breath and knocked. He was the chief representative of Spirit Pavilion's capital city branch division, an existence exclusive to the special edition of the Supreme Book, and someone who had crippled two high-level Spirit teachers in a contest of souls. In truth, Qin Yu was extremely famous right now. Thus, as the time approached, more and more people looked at him. Could it be that this fierce character had inexplicably failed? When Chief Manager Wu knocked on the door, the tension reached the limit. Nearly everyone on the martial field was waiting for what would happen next. There was no response. Could he have fainted? Just as Chief Manager Wu was about to lift his hand again, there was a light, creaking sound. The door to the coral house opened from within, and a black-robed figure appeared. He stretched his waist and seemed to yawn. "Chief Manager, you've come at just the right time. You set the same alarm as me." As he spoke, he waved a clam in his hand. It was a clam shell called a time clam. After one poured magic power into this clamshell, it would become a natural alarm clock. Once magic power was exhausted, it would ring out and one could control the time based on how much magic power was poured into it. At this moment, all the sea folk that saw this were left in a state of disarray. Even someone as calm and astute as Chief Manager, who couldn't help but open his mouth wide. He stuttered, "Grandmaster Ning, you really were sleeping." Chapter 143. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. Speak net, providing you with wonderful novels to read. Chinyu nodded. It only took me a bit of time to complete the treatment. I was too bored, so I took the opportunity to sleep. You should know that I was ambushed just now, and I was injured, so I decided to take this time to recover. Of course, these words were false. The reason he had waited until now to come out was because only when night fell would the little blue lamp be able to play its role. When he was at Sea Spirit Pavilion, Clayan had once asked him why he hadn't treated a sea spirit during the day, causing a guest to be worried. Chinyu had used this reason to gloss over it, and now he was casually using it again. Leon looked as if he already knew it, and said happily, "I knew it. Teacher must have overslept. I told him to pay attention to his rest, and not to overwork himself." The surrounding Sea Spirit Pavilion cultivators all had strange looks on their faces. Was it really a good idea to focus on something like this? Why did they want to beat this brat up? What? You're saying I'm jealous? Ha 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 ha, I'm not jealous. I'm not jealous. Woo woo. Why do I feel tears in my heart? Grandmaster Ning, why can't you see me? Whether it is in looks or intelligence, I can completely crush that brat Leon. Chief Manager Wu was someone who had experienced many trials and tribulations. With great willpower and perseverance, he slowly closed his jaw. After a moment of daze, he thought of something important. It's almost time. Grandmaster Ning, should we hand over the sea spirit first? Chinyu rubbed his eyebrows. I've slept too much. Then, let's ask the committee cultivator to come. In truth, they had already arrived, but they were hesitating. One had crippled 2 high-level sea spirit teachers, and the other had smashed up committee member Gudra, slamming the table and cursing at the committee. Both of them were violent and ruthless individuals. Who knew if the results would be good or bad? If they bumped into the muzzle of a gun, wouldn't that be far too dangerous? Seeing Chief Manager Wu wave his hand with a smile, the committee cultivator relaxed. He hurried over. Congratulations, congratulations. It seems that Grandmaster Ning has smoothly completed the treatment. Chief Manager Wu regained his composure. With a reserved expression, he said, "The sea spirit is here. I'll have to trouble you all to inspect it." Of course, of course. The staff member waved his hand, and someone immediately received the sea spirit with both hands, placing it on a square jade plate. Tiny lines lit up on the surface, emitting a halo of light that covered the tray and the sea spirit. In the previous great competition, there had been sea spirit teachers who had used special medicines to revitalize the sea spirits and cover up all their problems. Finally, they had obtained the qualifications to advance and had achieved a good result. After this matter was discovered, it caused an uproar throughout the entire city. Even though the sea spirit teacher involved was severely punished, he still refused to admit that someone had framed him. This caused the competition committee to fall into a passive position and even caused the sea spirit teachers to question the fairness of the competition. In order to prevent similar things from happening again, the competition committee had specially created this sort of detection treasure. It could keenly sense the composition of the medicine. Although no sea spirit teacher had dared to take the risk again in the last 100 to 200 years, this was still a tradition that had been preserved. The halo of light on the square jade board was calm, without any fluctuations at all. The staff member revealed a smile. There is no problem. Chief Manager can lead Grandmaster Ning to rest. After watching the staff leave, Chief Manager Wu bitterly smiled. Mr. Ning, you really scared me. Let's not do this in the future. Chinyu nodded, not speaking. He thought that the excuse of sleeping was convenient, but in this sort of situation, it seemed a bit too much. Sure enough, as he swept his eyes around, he saw that everyone was looking at him with a strange look and a deep awe. A sea spirit teacher from Sea Spirit Pavilion was trembling, looking as if he would collapse at any moment. He was the one who had been the most disdainful of Chinyu. This old fellow was quite strong, but his luck was too poor. When he was competing for the sea spirit, he had encountered a powerful enemy and had been severely wounded several times, forcing him to withdraw from the competition ahead of time. As he looked at Qin Yu walking towards him, his old face paled and he fainted. After a moment of chaos, he was carried away by others to be treated. There was nothing he could do. He couldn't afford to lose face, but he was also too embarrassed to stick his face in front of others and let them hit him. Thus, he fainted and temporarily avoided the limelight. Chief Manager Wu had a radiant smile on his face the entire way. His every movement was filled with confidence. But when he and Qin Yu boarded the carriage and avoided the eyes of the outside world, his complexion darkened. "Grandmaster Ning, are you really not injured?" Qin Yu shook his head. "I'm fine." His eyes flashed. It seems that the chief manager already knows. Chief Manager Wu coldly said, "I'm not blind. It seems that someone is eyeing Old C's purple card position. How bold!" Qin Yu's expression was calm. He wasn't surprised that Chief Manager Wu could guess this. He lightly said, "Those two sea spirit teachers might be able to find some problems. Love go small, say Nekku." Chief Manager Wu nodded. "I've already sent people to investigate, and there's also the competition committee. If it wasn't a deliberate arrangement, how could those two people have coincidentally appeared beside Mr. Ning? When I was raging with them just now, I carefully looked over them and locked onto the approximate target. I've also sent people to investigate them." Qin Yu frowned. "Will there be trouble if they hurt someone? Also, what about the sea spirits that were handed over to the competition committee?" Chief Manager Wu sneered. "They've already been pressed down. Until the competition ends, no one will come to inquire about them. Once the competition ends, the competition committee will be useless. If they dare to investigate them, then let's see if they can even enter the gates of my sea spirit pavilion. As for the sea spirits, I've already left behind a mark, so they won't dare to do anything. Otherwise, the reputation of the competition committee will be ruined." He revealed a hesitant expression. "Mr. Ning, I won't hide anything from you. Those who covet Old C's position must be powerful figures of the sea races. The reason I said that the matter of hurting someone has been pressed down is because my family's mistress personally brought a spirit shell from Sega City. Otherwise, things would have been far more troublesome. Chief Manager, are you saying that I am in great danger right now?" "Yes." Chief Manager Wu's complexion was solemn. In order to arrange today's situation, they must have used countless methods. Old C has already been taken by them, and Mr. Ning is the only obstacle. If it were me, I wouldn't have failed at the last moment. I would have eliminated Mr. Ning." Qin Yu lightly said, "Since Chief Manager is so honest, I believe you have a way to calm my heart." Chief Manager Wu's eyes brightened. "That's right. Mr. Ning, please rest assured. I guarantee with my life that no matter who they are, they won't be able to touch you." His eyes were wild and arrogant. "Many people are curious just what sort of background my sea spirit pavilion has that we were able to develop to our current scale in just 100 years. Soon they will find out." A day passed. Of the 20 sea spirits, 7 had been healed. The remaining 13 sea spirit teachers walked out of the coral house with weary expressions, helplessly handing over their sea spirits. On the altar, the second round of competition began. In this round, 6 sea spirits were healed. The third round of competition was incomparably brutal and brutal. Every several breaths of time, a sea spirit teacher would spit out blood from their nose and mouth. They would be blocked by the bubble and forced to retreat. In the end, almost half of the sea spirit teachers were injured, and the final 7 sea spirits were brought into the coral house. In normal circumstances, after 3 rounds of competition, the 20 spots in the finals would have been divided up. But perhaps because some sea spirit teacher was too heavily injured or had consumed too much soul force, at the end of the 3rd day, there was still a sea spirit placed on the altar. The reason for the previous round of competition was because after the first 20 sea spirits were taken away by sea spirit teachers, information about them would be placed on the altar at a high price. As long as one was willing to pay a high price, they could obtain the information they wanted. Thus, the success rate of the next 2 rounds would constantly rise. The third round was also a failure. It was either because they didn't manage to buy any information, or it was as the 2 mentioned possibilities. The fourth round began. Even with Qin Yu's willpower, he was secretly shaken by this brutal round. He thought that he had been ruthless enough to obtain a promotion spot ahead of time. Otherwise, if he had fallen to the 4th round, even if he had tried his best, he still wouldn't have been safe. A sea spirit teacher was overjoyed. Just as he was about to obtain the last sea spirit, his body stiffened and his eyes popped open. He spat out several mouthfuls of blood and fainted. In that moment, he had withstood at least 10 divine senses, all of them mercilessly attacking him. It was already good enough that he had managed to keep his life, and this was just a very normal scene in the whole crazy fight. High-level sea spirit teachers left the stage one after another with serious injuries. Everyone's eyes were red with killing intent, and the scene began to gradually spiral out of control. The committee began to sweat profusely. If there were too many casualties, then the next sea spirit teacher competition would inevitably be affected. It might even be stopped by His Majesty. This time the committee reacted quickly and quickly came up with a solution. The last sea spirit would be determined by pure soul strength. The sea spirit teachers gasped for breath. After a short period of thought, they accepted this proposal. The soul testing treasure that had been urgently borrowed from the royal palace appeared. All of the sea spirit teachers that could still move struggled to leave the stage. This included the old sea spirit teacher from Sea Spirit Pavilion who had fainted. After hearing the announcement on the broadcast, he leapt up from his bed and ran so quickly that several sea folk who were taking care of him couldn't help but widen their eyes. The final result was that a sea spirit teacher who believed that he was lacking in strength and had been frightened by the tragic situation of the 4th round, so he hadn't dared to do anything, had taken advantage of the situation and won by a hair's breadth. Looking at his wide smile, it was clear that he was overjoyed by this result. The committee had already temporarily changed the rules of the competition. If there was a 5th round, then things would truly be out of control. This was especially true when the soul testing treasure had arrived just now and His Majesty had issued a strict verbal decree. Thus, this sea spirit teacher with an obviously sloppy strength only used half a day to heal the last sea spirit. The committee carefully inspected it and announced in front of everyone that there were no problems. Of course, as for whether or not there were really no problems, only they themselves knew. There were some sea spirit teachers who raised objections. For instance, the 2nd-place finisher in the soul testing competition, who had nearly been eliminated, was forcefully expelled by the committee for ruining the progress of the competition. He was also banned from the competition for 30 years. Then, the entire world fell silent. At this point, the 20 competitors in the finals had all been decided. Chairman Su's deep and low voice echoed through the square. Now, I would like to invite the altar to make a final judgment on the 20 sea spirits. The top 2 will undergo an additional competition to determine who has the qualifications to challenge for the purple card. The surface of the white jade altar erupted with light. The 20 trays seemed to be summoned. They instantly flew up from the hands of the committee, cultivators, and flew straight towards the altar. Chapter 144. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. Sure, Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. The sacrificial altar was the same as the ancient bell outside the royal palace. It was an object from ancient times and had some strange and unimaginable uses. For instance, it could appraise the quality of sea spirits. The 20 sea spirits used for the examination had been carefully selected. They were all of the same rank, and the difficulty of the questions was also on the same level. After the 20 trays entered the range of the altar, almost at the same time, they emitted a faint, greenish-white light, just like the altar itself. This meant that the 20 sea spirits had returned to their normal range. But as time passed, the light that the trays emitted began to change. A few of the trays had a greenish-white color, and the white color was fading away, eventually turning into a dense green color. This meant that the sea spirits in the trays had surpassed the normal range of quality and had reached an outstanding level. A powerful sea spirit teacher could not only heal the wounds of a sea spirit, but also help it increase its strength. Of course, there were very few that could accomplish this. It could be said that they were the peak existences amongst sea spirit teachers. In normal circumstances, the top 2 finalists would be born from these sea spirits. But at this time, countless sea folk cried out in alarm. Inside and outside the Prosperity Square, there were nearly 1 million sea race members gathered. Their cries of alarm were like rolling thunder, constantly reverberating in the air. Amidst countless shocked gazes, a tray that was green to the extreme suddenly glowed with a bit of purple. Like a purple ink spot falling into water, it quickly spread. The faint purple was extremely thin, but it was so noble and extraordinary amidst the green and white, like the clouds overlooking the earth, because this represented a completely different level. The sea folk revered purple. This purple light in front of them indicated that the sea spirit on the tray had not only risen in strength, but had also made a qualitative breakthrough. Quality. First there was the quality, then the quality would be revealed. On the other hand, the sublimation of quality also represented a leap in quality. This sea spirit had surpassed its original grade. It had surpassed the other sea beads and reached a completely new level. The Great Sea Spirit Teacher Competition had been held many times, but the number of times where purple had appeared could be counted on one hand. Love, go, small, say, net kuan of these few protagonists. The vast majority of them would successfully defeat their chosen purple card sea spirit teacher in the following examination, becoming a new legend. In other words, the person who saved the master of this konjac flower had a high chance of becoming a new purple card. Countless gazes converged on a corner of the Prosperity Square. There were 7 or 8 carriages parked there, and they had long since been surrounded by a vast crowd. Each and every one of them was a dignitary of the capital, and they were not stingy with their smiles and congratulations. Their faces were full of respect and awe. Purple cards didn't need to pay their respects when entering the palace. The 100 tribes of the sea domain bowed to them. They were truly major characters who stood above the clouds. The Qing family patriarch and Madame Qing squeezed through the crowd, trying their best to blend into the circle of people congratulating Qinyu. But before they could approach, an indifferent gaze fell upon them, forcing them to halt their steps. The Qing family patriarch revealed an angry expression. Madame Qing held onto his hand, but this graceful woman still maintained an impeccable smile on her face. They absolutely could not leave, because even if they stood here in the eyes of outsiders, the Qing family still belonged to the peak of the capital city. In the middle of the carriage, a young man sat cross-legged. He seemed to have heard the noise outside, and his brows furrowed slightly. On the opposite side, the chubby old man stroked his beard and smiled. "They are congratulating you, young Master Jean. You are even more powerful than before. This time there should be no mistakes." The young man had an indifferent expression. "I know." His calm words were filled with confidence. The chubby old man smiled, a look of longing in his eyes. Once this matter succeeded, the plan that his family had been working on for so many years would finally be able to step onto the right track. Suddenly, an even louder roar came from outside the carriage. All of the dignitaries of the capital city who had hurried over to congratulate Qinyu had their jaws drop open, completely dumbfounded. On the altar, another tray gushed out with a halo of purple light. Contrasting with the precious purple soul flower, it became even more dazzling. From the start of the Great Sea Spirit Teacher Competition until now, there had never been a scene where two purple lights shined together. All of the sea folk watching the competition went crazy. Their cheers nearly tore apart the seawater and reached the heavens. First, they saw Mr. Ning waste two high-level sea spirit teachers. Then, they saw Chief Manager Wu attack the competition committee and smash committee member Gudra with his chair. Now, they actually saw two purple lights appear one after another. It was worth it. The ticket price was worth it. Countless sea folk who had been short on money or had acted too late were left with no choice but to stamp their feet in frustration. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have had a topic they could brag about for the rest of their lives. Chief Manager Wu's taut face instantly bloomed into a smile. As he looked at the calm Qinyu across from him, he couldn't help but sigh with emotion. This is what true confidence looks like. As he thought about how nervous he had been just now and how Qinyu must have seen him, Chief Manager Wu revealed an embarrassed expression. But he soon calmed down. As long as Qinyu could win, let alone making a fool of himself, he was willing to do something even more shameful. Qingqing's face was filled with excitement. She hugged Leon, laughing and jumping around. Only like this could she vent the joy in her heart. Leon clumsily responded to the congratulations of the sea folk around him. These high-level sea spirit teachers had completely swept away their previous arrogance and pride. Looking at the intimate atmosphere between them, it was as if they wished they could pull him over and become sworn brothers. The Qing family patriarch and Madame Qing suddenly discovered that they were surrounded by people. The nobles of the capital city who had been looking at them with warning glares were now all smiling and greeting them, apologizing for their rudeness just now. The atmosphere seemed incomparably harmonious. After a short period of time, the two of them received a massive wave of invitations. Although their hearts shook, they still maintained a calm smile on their faces as they laughed and chatted with them. Some people asked why Miss Qingqing was at Sea Spirit Pavilion. It seemed that she had a good relationship with Mr. Leon. The Qing family patriarch looked at his daughter who was hugging Leon and cheering. His eyelids jumped up, thinking that this wasn't nonsense. But besides a bit of jealousy, he didn't feel any anger. Mr. Leon? Hee. It seemed that nobles were truly shameless. Before this, they had all been referring to Mr. Leon as a boy who had walked into some dog's hit luck. Madame Qing casually said that her daughter and Grandmaster Ning's disciple were friends that she had met at work and that they only had a good relationship. In the high society circles, this sort of concealment was popular. The more one tried to explain, the harder it was to explain. And sure enough, the envy in those eyes became increasingly thick. In the middle carriage, the young sea spirit teacher paled. Mr. Ning, how could he still be alive? The fat old man bitterly smiled. We've already sent people to deal with him, but we underestimated his strength. Two high-level sea spirit teachers that we worked so hard to raise have already died. That's right, they had indeed died. He had personally given the order, so there shouldn't be any accidents. This was because only a dead person could keep a secret. Even his master didn't want to face that noble woman in Sega City. The young sea spirit teacher clenched his teeth. Let him die. I don't want to see him again. The fat old man hesitated for a moment before nodding in agreement. He sighed inwardly. The situation in the competition had already aroused attention. Many people suspected that once Mr. Ning died, it would surely set off a massive storm. Even the arrangements that his master had made over the years would be exposed and greatly damaged. But with things having come this far, it was impossible to retreat. As he thought of the orders his master had given him before he arrived, his eyes darkened. He gently knocked on the carriage. The 4 guards that had been standing guard outside all took several steps back. A powerful aura erupted, sealing off all signs of life. The fat old man took out a spirit shell and coldly ordered, "Have the spies take action. No matter what price we have to pay, erase this obstacle." He hung up the spirit shell and placed it in his chest pocket. Then he revealed a warm smile. "Young Master Jean, I've finished." The young sea spirit teacher humphed. He closed his eyes and began to meditate. Several committee members paled. It was unknown what thoughts were racing through their minds. The result was clear, and no one dared to argue. So, a moment later, Chairman Su announced the results. Dinghai City's Jing Guanjin and Sea Spirit Pavilion's Mr. Ning were tied for first place. 3 days from now, there would be an additional match to determine the final winner of the Sea Spirit Teacher Competition. Leon bid farewell to Ching Ching and boarded the carriage. Sea Spirit Pavilion's 9 carriages slowly drove out of the square. Countless sea folk cheered like a tide. Their eyes followed the carriages, sending out the highest awe and worship. But not long after the carriages left the square and entered the main road leading to Sea Spirit Pavilion, the windows on both sides of the street shattered and 20 black-clothed assassins jumped out. They were wrapped in black robes, and the blood that covered their bodies left one shivering. In just several breaths of time, the guards of Sea Spirit Pavilion had suffered heavy casualties. The 20 assassins were like ghosts as they rapidly approached the carriage. This scene shocked all of the sea folk that followed the carriages. Countless young noble ladies screamed out in pain as they were dragged away by the guards. The crowd fell into chaos as if they were in a riot. It had been many years since someone had been assassinated on the streets of the capital city. Some old sea folks' lips trembled, as if they were thinking back to those bloody times. In the carriage, Chief Manager Wu had a callous expression. As he watched the guards die, he didn't reveal the least bit of emotion. Qin Yu opened his eyes. "You were waiting for them?" Chief Manager Wu nodded. Ever since they moved against Old Sea, it was impossible for things to calm down. Since Mr. Ning revealed enough of a threat, they naturally had to take action. After a pause, his eyes turned even colder. "Although I made preparations, it was only a precaution. I never thought they would really dare to kill people in public in the capital city." He reached out a hand and made a gesture. Rumble, rumble. The earth trembled and the chaotic sea folk were brutally knocked to the side. Countless people fell to the ground, howling in pain. As they were about to curse, they saw the tall and sturdy seahorse behind them, a knight wrapped in armor. They quickly shut their mouths, a cold sweat dripping down their foreheads. The royal family had whale monster guards. This was a symbol of their status. But the strongest defensive strength was publicly recognized as the royal family's Black Riders. This was a mysterious strength. No one knew who controlled it, and no one knew where it was stationed or how many members it had. The most famous battle was in the year when the throne of the capital city changed. 3,000 Black Riders had entered the capital city and surrounded and killed 7 peak masters of the old royal family. In this battle, the Black Riders had suffered heavy casualties, but they had also established their unsurpassed status. Thus, even though the Black Riders hadn't appeared in the world for a long time, legends about them still circulated in the capital city. Chapter 145. Genius 1. Second, remember if you want to go. This is the web that provides you with wonderful novels to read. The crowd fell eerily quiet. Countless sea folks' jaws dropped open. They looked at this hell-like flood that came from all directions, surrounding all the assassins. Without needing orders, the orderly Black Riders suddenly divided into 20 smaller groups. Each group had 3 riders surrounding an assassin, and the black dragon spears in their hands thrust out. The unstoppable assassins instantly fell into a bitter struggle. Their exquisite killing skills couldn't be displayed in front of the Black Riders. If they wanted to escape, they would be blocked at all costs. The Black Riders bled, and the assassins died. The smell of blood wafted through the streets of the capital city. Faintly, one could see the days of bloodshed in the capital city. In the past, the Black Riders had also fought like this. Puff, the last assassin, was simultaneously pierced through by 7 dragon spears. Terrifying strength wreaked havoc, tearing apart his body from within. His eyes widened, filled with unwillingness as he died. No one was left alive. This was because since these elite assassins dared to openly attack in the capital city, they had already prepared themselves to die. Even if they tried to capture them, they would only obtain bodies that had died from poison. With the cruel and direct methods of the Black Riders, they naturally chose to use the smallest price to directly slaughter them. At one end of the street, atop a tall building, a fat old man shivered. He closed his eyes, and several drops of tears flowed out. His heart ached. After dozens of years of painstaking cultivation, the assassin squad that had finally taken shape had lost nearly half of its members. Moreover, he could only watch helplessly as they were killed without being able to rescue them. Black Riders, damn it, they had actually sent out the Black Riders. No wonder the master feared that woman from Sega City so much. She actually held such a terrifying strength in her hands. Just what was the master of the royal palace thinking? After ascending to the throne, he actually handed over such an important strength of the royal family to her to control. But now, there was no meaning in thinking about these things. His wrong judgment not only caused the assassins to suffer heavy casualties, but it also meant that it was impossible for him to directly erase this obstacle. This was because the Black Riders were the most formidable protectors of the sea region. Up until now, no one had been able to break through them. The chubby old man turned and left. Although he wasn't worried about being discovered and arousing suspicion, time was of the essence, and he had to work on other aspects. The long street returned to silence. The 60 black-clad riders lined up once more. Even though some of them were severely injured and blood flowed down their black armor, their backs were still straight and the black dragon spears in their hands didn't tremble in the slightest. Under the awe and reverence in the eyes of the guards, they replaced the guards and slowly circled around the carriage toward Sea Spirit Pavilion. On this day, the appearance of the Black Riders caused countless people to guess the true background of Sea Spirit Pavilion. Their minds were shaken to the extreme. Qin Yu looked at the quiet Black Riders outside. They were completely one with their mounts. Besides the sound of hooves, even their breathing was in the same rhythm. This kind of well-trained sea species army was unbelievably strong. He even suspected that as long as there were enough Black Knights, they could even kill nascent soul cultivators. In comparison, the so-called Cultivator Alliance army in the war between the righteous and the evil in the south was like a motley crew. They didn't need too many. 5,000 Black Knights would be enough to crush both the righteous and demonic paths. Perhaps only a race with supreme royal authority like the sea races could truly control such a terrifying strength. Chief Manager Wu's face was full of praise. The Black Riders are one of the strongest forces of the sea races. Their appearance is enough to ensure that Mr. Qin is not harmed by the outside world. His eyes were full of desire. There was no one who didn't want to control such a formidable strength. But besides the royal family, only a small number of powerful tribes had the qualifications to form their own battalions. It wasn't that the other sea race influences didn't want to, but that they couldn't afford it. For an army composed entirely of powerful sea folk, the losses would be an astronomical figure that couldn't be calculated. They smoothly arrived at Sea Spirit Pavilion. The Black Riders finally dispersed, vanishing from sight once more. But no one doubted that once Sea Spirit Pavilion was attacked, they would appear as soon as possible. Chief Manager Wu stepped down from the carriage, a solemn expression on his face. The Black Riders can defend against frontal attacks. Now, it is time for me to fulfill my promise and ensure Mr. Qin's safety. Old Chow was the head chef of Sea Spirit Pavilion's dining hall. He had worked diligently for dozens of years, and because of his sincerity and diligence, his cooking skills, and his simple and honest smile, he was well received by the staff of Sea Spirit Pavilion. He was a character that didn't have a high status but was extremely popular. The higher-ups had ordered him to cook a pot of nourishing medicinal cuisine. Even though Old Chow had spent his entire life dealing with smoke and fumes, He was still shocked by the ingredients, disregarding everything else. Just the several main ingredients that nourished the soul were good enough to be auctioned off. Old Chow roused himself. After carefully washing up, he changed into a new chef's robes, shaved his face, and cleaned his hands. Then, under the watchful eyes of several guards, he began to carefully process the ingredients. Even if the ingredients were good, they had to be matched with a good chef. Only then could they reasonably control the heat and stimulate all of the medicinal properties without being too violent or difficult to absorb. After washing, cutting, and placing the ingredients into a 30-year-old soup pot, he poured water over it and covered it. Old Chow looked at the several guards around him, an awkward expression on his face. Which chef didn't have some unique skills? Most of them were passed down from their ancestors. If their children weren't outstanding, they wouldn't even be able to look at them. So they certainly didn't want to teach them to outsiders. The guard captain smiled. He helplessly said, "Old Chow, we all know your rules. Let's turn around and hurry up, all right?" Old Chow nodded again and again in thanks. When the guards turned around, he began to mix in the soup that stimulated the medicinal properties. His movements were smooth and graceful, and after a moment he smiled. "It's done." He lifted a hand and poured in the soup. As the heat increased, a rich fragrance began to waft out. The several guards gulped. The guard captain laughed and scolded. "You bastards, you really dare to dream. Just smelling something like this is your luck. Wake up early." Old Chow smiled. 2 hours later, the medicinal cuisine was ready. He lifted the pot and carefully looked at the color of the soup. After smelling it, he smiled and said that this was just right. But he had to drink it while it was hot. Otherwise, the medicinal effects would fade away. The guard captain waved his hand, and someone immediately brought out a new food box and placed the medicinal cuisine inside. He smiled and said, "Old Chow, if you have time tonight, let's drink a cup. I will prepare the ingredients, and you can make it." Seeing Old Chow nod, the group of guards wanted to join in on the fun, but after being scolded several times, they hurried away with the medicinal cuisine. After they left, Old Chow began to clean up the traces of his work. Once everything was done, he turned and left, vanishing from the small door where he purchased materials and cleaned up the trash. Old Chow didn't return that day. It was said that he had retired due to old age. That night, the guard captain died in his home. No one mentioned the dinner party again. Spirit Pavilion operated as usual. Perhaps it was because of Grandmaster Ning, but business was even more lively than usual. The consultants at the entrance were so busy that their feet didn't even touch the ground. There was a family of 3 customers. The hostess and her daughter were very beautiful, and the short man who looked like a winter melon was the subject of many envious gazes. He was proud of himself, but he was also a bit vigilant as he swept his eyes around. Whenever someone looked at him with a burning gaze, he would fiercely glare back. It was the classic appearance of someone who was protecting their food. The reception consultant stepped forward and asked. Both sides had a pleasant conversation, and they arrived at the counter to register. As they were talking to the counter staff, the beautiful woman blushed red and whispered something. The reception consultant smiled brightly and gestured with her hand. The man had a bad look in his eyes, but he couldn't leave right now. He could only bitterly nod and urge her to come back earlier. Humans had 3 needs, and the sea races were no different. Even an extremely beautiful young woman gently swayed her hips as she walked, causing the consultant to stare at her. The 2 people's eyes met several times. The young woman's blushing face was evasive and filled with anticipation, causing the consultant to feel restless. They arrived at the restroom. That's right, the sea races called it a restroom. It was a very clean and elegant name. The young woman looked at the tall and handsome consultant and turned to walk in. A quarter hour, half an hour, the consultant waited for a long time, but the beautiful woman didn't come out again. As for the short man who looked like a winter melon, he seemed to have taken care of everything and left early with his daughter. In truth, the sea races that had taken human form weren't any different from humans. They ate, drank, and had everything they needed to do. With so many sea races gathered together in the capital city, sanitation was certainly important. Thus, beneath the massive capital city, there were extremely well-developed sewage pipes that led to the distant trenches to ensure that the capital city and its surrounding environment wouldn't be affected. Every day, a massive number of cleaners would enter the temporarily closed sewage pipes to repair them in order to ensure that they could continue to live. A group of sea folk responsible for cleaning the pipes laughed and joked. They walked into the pipes, shrouded in darkness. In the distance, one could hear the sound of laughter, as if someone were telling a joke. This group of stinky members of the sea tribe gradually disappeared into the depths of the pipe. Then they dispersed according to the division of labor and went to different work areas. 6 members of the sea tribe suddenly became silent after they left the crowd. They turned off the lighting equipment above their heads. Like a group of mice in the dark, they carefully and quietly opened a gate that should have been sealed and walked in. Qin Yu was really sleeping. After entering the sea race capital city, he had been tense and cautious. It was only now that he was sure that there were people guarding him that he could relax a little. After a dreamless sleep, Qin Yu opened his eyes in high spirits. He felt as if his entire body had been cleansed and his soul had become much clearer. This was the path of relaxation. As for the upcoming competition, was that something he needed to consider? Leon hurriedly stood up and respectfully bowed towards his teacher. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Teacher, the sky-sea wings." Qin Yu waved his hand. "I said I would give them to you, so just accept them." Leon's face was filled with gratitude. "Thank you, teacher." Qin Yu walked over to the workbench where the tea set was placed. He lit the flames of the void and began to boil water for tea. Leon respectfully stood to the side. He knew that when his teacher brewed tea, he was also meditating and didn't want to be disturbed. But the process of brewing tea had been interrupted. Leon quickly opened the door, revealing Chief Manager Wu's slightly tired face. As he walked in and saw Qin Yu brewing tea, he was startled for a moment before bitterly smiling. "Mr. seems to be in a good mood." Qin Yu smiled. "Chief Manager, you came at the right time. Please sit down." Chief Manager Wu took out a box of food. "This is some medicinal cuisine. Mister, please drink it. It will be good for your body." As Chief Manager Wu watched Qin Yu pour tea, he couldn't help but shake his head. "Mister, do you know that in order to make this medicinal cuisine, from the time it was purchased to the time it was delivered to the time it was made, among them were many years of ingredient suppliers to my sea, spirit pavilion, internal guards, and even a chef that could make my favorite dish." Chapter 146. The voice beneath the black robe was calm. "Did Chief Steward not find any clues?" "I found them, but most of the clues were cut off with the deaths of the people involved. The only thing we can investigate is the 20 assassins who tried to assassinate him on the street. Perhaps the instigator behind the scenes also knows how vile it is to assassinate someone on the streets of the capital city. They will need to give an explanation, even if it is only to shut everyone's mouths." Chief Manager Wu's complexion was ugly. "But does Mr. know where this trail leads?" "It's an escort agency in the capital city that relies on Sea Spirit Pavilion's orders to make money all year round." "That's right. It's a business of Sea Spirit Pavilion." It was no wonder Chief Manager Wu was so angry that he was investigating the assassin. Qin Yu shook his head. "It seems that the person who wants to kill me is extremely meticulous." Chief Manager Wu said in a low voice, "Mister, rest assured that with the Black Knights outside, they won't dare to act recklessly. As long as you stay here, I guarantee that no one will be able to harm you." Time was unpredictable. Sometimes it was unbearably long, and sometimes it was like a rushing river, passing in the blink of an eye. The third day, on the surface, Sea Spirit Pavilion didn't seem any different from before, but the internal defenses had been raised to the highest level. There were even people standing guard in the sewage pipes buried deep underground. But the pervasive methods of the last 2 days had suddenly vanished without a trace. As noon approached, everything was calm and tranquil. The Sea Spirit Pavilion guards looked at each other in dismay. Could it be that the other party had given up? Chief Manager Wu coldly sneered. He ordered for everyone to be on high alert. He believed that this was their opponent's plan to numb them. Before the finals ended, they couldn't relax their defenses for even a moment. But on this day, there was no assassination. Rather, a guest appeared and asked to see Mr. Ning. Chief Manager Wu personally handled the situation. It was unknown what the two sides said, but his complexion was clearly extremely gloomy. He lowered his voice and roared a few times before taking out a spirit shell and striking out. After a while, he hung up. He took a deep breath and said, "I'm going to ask Grandmaster Ning now. You had best guarantee that there won't be any problems." The guest was bald and had a bulging stomach, looking like the Maitreya Buddha. His small eyes were full of calmness and indifference. Since he could sit here, he would not be afraid of such threats. He smiled and cupped his hands. "Thank you, head butler." Chief Manager Wu flicked his sleeves and left. He soon arrived at the 7-layer building, took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Leon opened it and respectfully retreated to the side. "Qin, you didn't cultivate." Although Sea Spirit Pavilion was heavily guarded, it was always better to be a bit more cautious. Looking at the manager's complexion, his eyes flashed. "Chief Manager, is there something wrong?" Chief Manager Wu opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. He forced a smile and said, "Mr. Ning, I came here to invite you out to meet a guest." Qin Yu frowned. Chief Manager Wu hurriedly explained, "Someone is holding the Sea Spirit token that my master sent out in the past. They are asking Grandmaster Ning to see the holder of the Sea Spirit token. The Sea Spirit token is a special token that the master sent out when Sea Spirit Pavilion was first established in order to thank everyone for their help. With this token, one can request that Sea Spirit Pavilion agree to a condition. In these past years, the Sea Spirit cards have been taken back one after another. I never thought that this person would actually obtain one. Master cannot break his promise, but I have agreed to give Grandmaster Ning 3 million spirit stones as compensation. The Black Knights will follow you, and I will also bring experts with me. As long as I don't die, you won't be in any danger." Qin Yu's eyebrows relaxed. He thought for a moment and said, "All right, I agree." He was also curious as to just who it was that wanted to kill him. Chief Manager Wu had an apologetic expression. "In short, it is my Sea Spirit Pavilion that has let Mr. Ning down this time." Please wait a moment. I will immediately arrange everything." Qin Yu thought for a moment. He called Leon over and gave him a few instructions. Leon nodded and hurried away, soon returning with a black box. Chief Manager Wu returned. "Mr. Ning, please come in." There wasn't a massive commotion as expected. There were only 4 people outside the door. Their faces were simple and unsmiling, and behind them were 2 long swords, narrow at the top and wide at the bottom. As he approached, he felt a faint pain all over his body, as if there were invisible thorns growing all around them. "There are spies among the guards, so we cannot allow them to stay close to protect us. These 4 Sea Mantis swordsmen come from Sega City, so we can trust them completely." Chief Manager Wu explained. After boarding the carriage and leaving, the Black Knights quietly gathered around. They followed the carriage in front of them along the main streets of the capital city. This conspicuous group instantly attracted the attention of countless people. As they guessed the identity of the person in the carriage, they couldn't help but be secretly surprised. In such a dangerous time, this person wasn't hiding in Sea Spirit Pavilion, but actually dared to come out and wander around. At 4 Seas Restaurant, the carriage came to a stop. The Black Knights dispersed, distancing themselves from the surrounding environment. Chief Manager Wu got off the carriage first. He swept his cold eyes around and then drew back half a step to allow Qin Yu to step down. The bald and chubby sea folk had a warm smile on his face. Grandmaster Ning has taken the time to come, and my master is overjoyed. He is already waiting for you in the banquet hall. Please. Several people from the Black Knights dismounted and followed. Chief Manager Wu and the 4C Mantis swordsman stepped into 4C's restaurant. The sea folk faintly smiled, not minding this at all. When they arrived outside the private room and saw the similarly silent Black Knights, Chief Manager Wu's pupils shrank. Little Wu, the one treating is me. I have some words. I wish to speak with Mr. Ning alone. Wait outside. An old voice sounded out from inside. Chief Manager Wu revealed a bitter expression. He respectfully bowed. Yes, I understand. He turned and looked at Qinyu, his eyes cryptic. Mister, rest assured that since the old man is treating you, there is no need to worry about your safety. I will wait for you outside. Qinyu's eyes flashed. He nodded and pushed open the door. The private room was large. The table was large, and there were many dishes. Hot steam wafted out, and a fragrant aroma wafted out. There were 2 chairs placed opposite each other. In the seat of the sect master, there was an old man in silk robes. His face was pale, and his eyes were penetrating, as if they could see straight into one's heart. As he saw Qinyu enter, he smiled. Mr. Ning, please sit and have a taste of the dishes I have prepared. I borrowed the chef from His Majesty today. I hope it will suit your taste. He spoke in an understated manner, displaying his superior demeanor. Qin, you didn't stand on ceremony. He sat down and picked up a bowl and chopsticks to eat. The taste was indeed good. The thin slices of meat melted in his mouth, and the fragrance penetrated straight into his heart and lungs. There were several beautiful scales between the old man's eyebrows. Unfortunately, Qinyu wasn't too familiar with the sea races, so he couldn't guess his identity. At this time, his eyebrows arched up, a bit of appreciation in his eyes. The 2 didn't speak. There was only the sound of chewing and swallowing in the private room. It seemed the old man's appetite wasn't too good. After a while, the old man put down his chopsticks and looked at Qinyu, who was still gorging himself. He let out an envious sigh, but he didn't rush him. Instead, he smiled as he watched Qinyu eat to his heart's content. With his successful demon body, Qinyu's appetite was far more terrifying than it seemed. The table was a mess, and most of the food had entered his mouth. He picked up a cup of tea and took a sip. He let out a comfortable breath and said, Thank you for your hospitality. The old man smiled. Being able to eat is a blessing. When I was young, I ate more than you. Unfortunately, I am old now and I have the heart, but not the strength. So, young people should enjoy themselves now, so that they don't regret it later. For instance, a poor old man like me. Qin, you didn't know what this old man was thinking, but he smiled and nodded. Mr. Ning is young and promising, so why waste your time on a vanity fair like the capital city? How about you follow me out to the sea and have some fun? This is the first time my shark ship has entered the water after I finished refining it. It has all sorts of fun and delicious things to eat on it. Moreover, there is a treasure house built on it where most of my life's collections are stored. Mr. Ning, you can choose as many as you like from there. Qin Yu lightly said, I thank you for your good intentions. If Mr. isn't in a hurry, you can wait a few days for me. After the Great Sea Spirit Teacher competition ends, I might agree. The old man shook his head. I can't wait. The ship enters the water today. I've already chosen a good day. Qin Yu said, Then I can only disappoint Mr.'s good intentions. The old man frowned. Mr. Ning, do you not want to consider it? Qin Yu stood up. There's no need. When he reached the door, the old man's voice sounded out from behind him. Mr. Ning, you are still very young, so there is no need to be impatient about anything. My collection on the ship is worth tens of millions each. In particular, there are some soul-strengthening items that will surely satisfy you. Qin, you didn't turn around. Although the treasures are good, the promise is even heavier. Since I promised first, I can only apologize. He pushed open the door. The bald man suddenly approached. He lowered his voice and roared, "Grandmaster Ning, I thought you were a smart person, but I never thought you would make such a stupid choice. I am very disappointed." Qin Yu glanced over. "Who are you?" The bald man's breath caught in his throat, and his complexion became even uglier. "I respectfully call you Grandmaster because I think highly of you. Do you really think you have a chance to become a great figure above the highest heavens?" How could young Master Jin be? He suddenly stopped, realizing that he had said something he shouldn't have. He clenched his teeth and said, "Surname Ning, this is your last chance. Don't blame me for not warning you." Chief Manager Wu had a worried expression. He was pacing back and forth, not too far away. When he heard the door open, he hurried over. As he saw this, he coldly said, "Steward Wang, what are you doing?" It was clear he had already recognized this person. Steward Wang coldly sneered and turned to leave. Chief Manager wanted to say something, but hesitated. Qin Yu lightly said, "Let's go." After leaving 4C Hall, the carriage quietly drove down the road. Without waiting for Chief Manager Wu to speak, Qin Yu suddenly said, "Chief Manager, do you know someone from the Sound Shell Station?" Chief Manager Wu was stunned. He couldn't keep up with Qin Yu's thoughts and simply nodded. The carriage turned. A moment later, Qin Yu emerged from a small sound shell station under the protection of black armored guards. A moment ago, there had been a suicide attack. Chief Manager Wu had a gloomy expression as he interrogated a survivor he had managed to catch with great difficulty. "Mr. Ning, let's hurry back." Before he could ask what Qin Yu was doing, the meticulous Chief Manager Wu noticed that there were several cold and callous black armored guards, looking at Qin Yu with a strange expression. Let's go." They boarded the carriage. Before long, Director Jean hurriedly knocked on the window and passed in a sound shell. He looked at Qin Yu with shock in his eyes. Chief Manager Wu opened it. After a short period of rustling noise, this finely crafted sound shell displayed its function and broadcasted a clear audio message. The conversation in the box wasn't too out of line. But after they left, Steward Wang's low voice roared out, leaving one's imagination running wild. "Young Master Jean, everyone knew that the sea spirit teacher competing to challenge for one of the purple cards was Jing Guanjin. This is an audio message that our station's spies risked their lives to send to us. According to our voice experts, the Grandmaster Ning in this audio message is Sea Spirit Pavilion's Mr. Ning. It is hard for us to imagine just what sort of person would dare to so brazenly threaten a high-level sea spirit teacher that is about to participate in an important competition. As for what sort of story is behind this, we will continue to pay attention and broadcast it for you." The solemn voice of the announcer in the sound shell continued. But Chief Manager Wu couldn't hear anything at all. His head was ringing. Chapter 147. When one's status and identity reached a certain level, there would be a tacit understanding between them. This could also be called unspoken rules. In the last 2 days, Sea Spirit Pavilion had suffered many assassinations, but the outside world didn't know about them, and they were all quietly erased. This was one of the manifestations of these unspoken rules. Those of the same level needed to abide by them. Otherwise, if they acted recklessly, they would be rejected by the entire level and eventually disappear or be destroyed. For instance, Qin Yu's current actions. Although he didn't know what the situation was like in the outside world, he didn't need to be an idiot to know that once such a shady scandal was exposed, it would inevitably cause great waves. That sound shell station that didn't hesitate to broadcast this news had easily achieved its goal. It had become the most popular program without a doubt. Mr. Ning Yu. Chief Manager Wu was incoherent. He didn't know what to say. Qin Yu lightly said, "I am very angry." These words blocked off all of Chief Manager Wu's complaints. As he thought about how this person came from the Sky Spirit Sage lineage that was isolated from the world and rarely communicated with the outside world, It was understandable that he would do such a thing that broke the rules. With a bitter smile, Chief Manager Wu picked up a spirit shell and called it several times in the hopes of suppressing this matter. But he had clearly underestimated how gossipy the people of the capital city could be. With such a great inside story exposed, it instantly became the hottest topic. The matter had completely blown up. As the old man in silk robes walked out of Forsey Hall, he heard his subordinates report and bitterly smiled. He never thought that this old man would play such a trick. Steward Wang stomped his feet and cursed, his entire body shaking with anger. Although the sound shell station didn't mention the identities of the two people in the broadcast besides Qinyu, the nobles of the capital city were well aware of this. Not only did he not handle this matter well, but he had lost a great deal of face. The old man waved his hand, interrupting the torrential words of revenge. Enough. I have already made my move and returned the favor from the past. No matter what the result is, this matter has nothing to do with us. Pass down the order for the whale ship to set sail ahead of time to avoid this storm. Steward Wang didn't give up. Old master, are we just going to let this go? It won't look good on you. The old man had a faint expression. Wang Gui, you grew up together with me, and I don't think I've mistreated you. The wealth I've accumulated over the years can be considered considerable in the capital city. Return the things you've received and don't mention this matter again. Steward Wang dripped with a cold sweat. The carriage went straight to the docks. The old man in robes looked out the window, his eyes slightly dazed. It had been many years since such a person had appeared in the capital. This Mr. Ning was truly a bold and interesting person. He was really curious as to what the final result of this matter would be. At the pier, the magnificent ship was anchored. It was built with the skeleton of a giant shark as the foundation. Under the coral's radiance, a large shadow was scattered down, creating a majestic sight. "Master, where are we going?" the captain asked respectfully. The old man smiled. "Since there are no guests boarding the ship, there is no need to find an excuse to rest. Let's begin the hunt." He glanced back at the capital city before stepping onto the ship. The shark boat quickly started moving, silently squeezing through the seawater and disappearing from sight. Chief Manager Wu soon obtained this news. He wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead and let out a long breath. If this old mister didn't blame him, then things would be much easier to deal with. He actively ran around to explain. In interviews, he inadvertently mentioned that Mr. Ning had been attacked several times in the last 3 days and that he had repeatedly encountered danger. He defended Qinyu and exonerated him, allowing him to gain the upper hand in public opinion. Things had already been discovered. Since there was no way to suppress it, he could only take this chance to attack his opponent. Perhaps that young Master Jin's temperament wasn't good, so he was greatly affected. If so, then Mr. Ning's chances of victory would be much higher. Just as all the doubts and accusations gathered on Jing Guanjin, and he was about to become a street rat, someone finally stood up to refute him. Chief Manager Wu had already expected this. After all, it was impossible for the other party to simply pour dirty water on him, even if this was the truth. But he never imagined that the one who did this would be such a powerful heavyweight. The third ranked of the 10 great purple cards, Grandmaster Wu Zetian, who was known for his fiery temperament and abhorrence of evil, had personally appeared to reprimand Sea Spirit Pavilion for being despicable and shameless, and for maliciously slandering his disciple, Jing Guanjin. Like a star falling into the sea, great waves were set off. All of the sea folk that were denouncing Jing Guanjin fell silent. The 10 great purple cards stood proudly in the highest heavens. To the ordinary sea folk, they were supreme existences of legends. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's endorsement became the strongest evidence to exonerate them. For a time, rumors rose in all directions, and all sorts of conspiracy theories began to clamor. Sea Spirit Pavilion went from being persecuted to being despicable villains that would do anything to win. Although there were countless holes in the rumors, with Grandmaster Wu Zetian's appearance, as well as the countless people secretly adding fuel to the fire. The momentum of the rumors grew greater and greater. As everyone focused on this matter, Grandmaster Wu Zetian was interviewed by the capital city's media. He spoke once more. The 10 great purple card sea spirit teachers are the representatives of the sea spirits in the world. Not only do they need to have superb skills, but they also need to have a noble character. In view of the actions of Sea Spirit Pavilion's Sea Spirit teacher, surnamed Ning, I have already obtained the agreement of 2 other purple cards to activate the examination authority. The media was in an uproar. Like a madman, they spread this news throughout the capital city at the fastest speed possible. Paper, sound shell stations, video channels, all sorts of channels were opened up. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's cold and callous expression, his stern voice, and his powerful and resonant attitude were spread to all the sea folk. There were some sea folk that didn't know what this news meant, but they were immediately looked down upon by a large group of people. Then they began to explain. The so-called examination authority was a test that purple card sea spirit teachers gave to new purple cards. It required the agreement of at least 3 purple cards to activate, and the leader would personally conduct the examination. In other words, once Qin Yu obtained the qualifications to challenge and successfully became a purple card, he would welcome Grandmaster Wu Zetian's personal examination. If he failed, his purple card would be revoked. Purple card sea spirit teachers had a revered status, and they had a formidable influence on ordinary sea folk. Behind their birth and change were countless struggles. Activating the examination authority was the same as trying to knock someone into the dust. This was a great enmity that would not end until one side was dead. In history, this had only occurred twice. The result of these 2 times was that a top influence had vanished into thin air, and there were also aristocratic families that had become mortal enemies. Grandmaster Wu Zetian successfully stole the limelight and attracted everyone's attention. The uproar caused by the black screen soon disappeared. The small sound shell station that played this recording was purchased by someone the next day with a large sum of money. All those involved had their mouths sealed, and it was as if nothing had happened. Chief Manager Wu's forehead was dripping with sweat. He had already investigated this matter, but he never imagined that Jing Guanjin had hidden himself so deeply that he was actually Grandmaster Wu Zetian's disciple. It was said that the 3rd-ranked purple card was because this Grandmaster was too impatient. His true strength was no weaker than the first 2 purple cards. It could be said that in the sea region, Grandmaster Wu Zetian was the strongest peak sea spirit teacher. Even if Mr. Ning came from the sky spirit sage lineage, he was still too young. How could he possibly be Grandmaster Wu Zetian's match? To put it bluntly, Chief Manager Wu was worried that Grandmaster Ning wouldn't be able to obtain any harvest in this competition. Would he still persist? After all, on one hand, he wouldn't obtain anything and would become Grandmaster Wu Zetian's enemy. On the other hand, he could see extremely rich rewards. It was clear that his worries weren't unfounded. Someone went to the Qing family and sent a message to Leon through Qingqing. If Mr. Ning withdrew now, he could obtain 30 million spirit stones as compensation. This was an astonishing amount of wealth, especially in the current situation. It could be said that it was filled with sincerity. When Chief Manager Wu hurried over, Qin Yu was drinking tea. After these past 2 days of leisure, he had become increasingly fond of relaxing his mind. Seeing his anxious expression, Qin Yu lightly said, "Chief Manager, rest assured that since I have promised you, I will not go back on my word. I will give it my all in the competition." Chief Manager Wu revealed a grateful expression. After thinking for several breaths of time, he clenched his teeth and said, "Mister, please rest assured. As long as you can help Old Sea maintain his purple card status, my Sea Spirit Pavilion will definitely give you sufficient compensation." He took out a spirit shell and headed for Sega City. After a moment, Chief Manager Wu returned. He took out a storage shell and said, Mister, my master is extremely grateful to you for your decision. There are 10 million spirit stones inside. No matter who wins or loses in tomorrow's finals, they will belong to you. In addition, if Elder High is safe, we will give you another 20 million spirit stones. Qin Yu didn't refuse. After all, in the eyes of outsiders, this was what he deserved. Although in his heart, he had never placed Wu Zetian in his eyes. So what if he was ranked third among the purple cards? With a little blue lamp in hand, he could ignore anyone when it came to spirit plants. The right to start the assessment. A cold light flashed in Qin Yu's eyes. Perhaps I won't give you this chance. Prosperity Square, the final match. In the carriage, a fat old man had a worried expression. Young Master Jean, it seems that C Spirit Pavilion has promised great benefits to the other party, and that's why he refused. Do you have confidence in today's competition? Jing Guanjin had a confident expression. Father, pour all of the remaining Sky Spirit strength into my body. I will definitely win today's competition. The fat old man calmed down a little. He reminded, even so, young Master Jean should still give it your all. After all, this matter is far too important. I know what I'm doing. Beneath the royal palace, the sound of a bell rang out. Jing Guanjin coldly sneered. He pushed open the door and stepped out of the carriage. Not too far away, C Spirit Pavilion's carriage opened. The black-robed figure's eyes collided with his. Needles and threads. Both of them could feel the chill in each other's eyes. Jing Guanjin stood tall and straight. His appearance was handsome, and his callous expression added a bit more to his bearing, as if he were a dragon amongst men. In comparison, the black-robed Qin Yu seemed to be hiding his head and showing his tail. Perhaps all intelligent races couldn't avoid the subconscious factor of appearance. Thus, the countless screaming noble young ladies and the bashful daughters of humble families caused Jing Guanjin to explode with cheers. The two of them walked side by side towards the altar. Two coral houses that were several sizes larger were placed on the altar, and there was a barefoot, white-robed priest standing beside them. With a voice that only the two of them could hear, Jing Guanjin coldly said, Mr. Ning, as long as you are my enemy, you will never have a good ending. I guarantee that appearing here today will be your greatest mistake. Qin Yu suddenly stopped. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, he took out a black wooden box from his chest and opened it, releasing the words he had just recorded. The recording box had clearly been amplified, and it was of excellent quality. After being amplified, there wasn't the least bit of distortion, allowing Jing Guanjin's words to be broadcast to the public. Closing the recording box, Qin Yu lightly said, You've already been recorded once, so why don't you remember? Moreover, please make sure that your character is proportional to your appearance. If you want to speak, then speak openly. Qin Yu left behind the trembling Jing Guanjin and strode forwards. The countless cheering noble young ladies and daughters of humble families suddenly came to a halt. At this time, the glorious image in their hearts suddenly collapsed. Chapter 148. All of the dignitaries watching the final competition felt their lips twitch. This Grandmaster Ning had actually become addicted to recording. Jing Guanjin was also a good-for-nothing trash. He clearly knew that his opponent didn't play by common sense, yet he still gave them a handle to use against him. This was a competition for the right to challenge a purple card, so all 10 purple cards were present for this competition. They were in one of the main halls of the palace, and through an array, they watched the city enter at the same time. Old C's complexion was pale, and he found it hard to conceal his weariness. As he looked at Qin Yu walking towards the altar in the light, he faintly smiled. There are some people, so what if they use all their schemes and schemes? You'll be slapped in the face eventually. His voice wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone in the hall to hear him. Wu Zetian's face darkened and his eyes shined with a cold light. What is the point of playing some petty tricks and trying to win with words? What matters is one's own strength. Elder Hai's expression was indifferent. It's just a small slap in the face now. What comes next will be a big slap in the face. That's why I said that some people have to be slapped in the face eventually. I'm sorry, I'm a little talkative when I'm injured. Please don't take offense. The purple cards all had strange expressions on their faces. How could the atmosphere be like this at such an important moment? Wu Zetian wanted to say something, but someone interrupted him. All right, the match is about to begin. On the projection, Jing Guanjin and Qin Yu had already stepped onto the altar. The white-robed priest said lightly, "Everything inside the 2 coral houses has been prepared. In order to ensure fairness and justice, the altar will be activated to monitor. I hope the 2 of you won't use anything you shouldn't. In addition, the duration of the competition is 2 days. Both of you are free to decide the specifics." After saying that, he drifted away. Jing Guanjin snorted coldly and walked straight to the coral house on the left. Qin Yu turned right. He entered the coral house and searched carefully as usual. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, he took out the silent stone and his face darkened. This was because he wasn't sure whether or not the existence of the little blue lamp would be sensed by the altar. The 10 great purple cards couldn't see what was happening within the coral house. But the 2 sea spirits had already absorbed the sensing culture fluid ahead of time. Through special methods, they could borrow the power of treasures to sense the changes occurring within the 2 sea spirits. At the start, the 2 sea spirits didn't change at all. This was normal. Sea spirit teachers weren't gods. No matter how powerful they were, they still needed time to examine and judge. An hour later, the strength of one of the sea spirits began to fluctuate. After a brief stalemate, it began to slowly rise. This meant that the negative problems of the sea spirit itself were being resolved. It was Jing Guanjin. The purple cards all had dignified expressions. To be able to stand out amongst the countless sea spirit teachers, there was no need to doubt his strength. Even they didn't dare to underestimate him. Moreover, through careful observation, with their rich experience, they could roughly judge the strength of the healer, which was crucial for the next challenge. After all, in theory, every single one of the 10 great purple cards could be challenged. Of course, as they were thinking about this, they inadvertently glanced at Old Hai. After feeling sympathetic, they also secretly felt gratified. Old C remained expressionless, but he cursed inwardly as a whore. That's right, that was exactly what he was cursing. The dazzling halo of a purple card sea spirit teacher was something added by the outside world. They were also ordinary sea folk and had their own selfish desires and likes and dislikes. For instance, Grandmaster Wu Zetian. At this time he was stroking his beard and smiling. His domineering face was filled with satisfaction. Occasionally he would glance around, revealing a bit of coldness. Jing Guanjin came from a noble background and possessed an extremely formidable talent as a sea spirit teacher. After being carefully taught by Lin Ming, he was absolutely an outstanding figure amongst high-level sea spirit teachers. In addition, in order to ensure the victory of the competition, that big shot poured in. Even Lin Ming's eyes burned with desire, so how could he possibly lose? Time slowly passed. Jing Guanjin's progress was extremely smooth. He had basically solved the problem of the sea spirit and was now increasing its strength. Thus, a scene that left all the purple card sea spirit teachers shocked appeared. The light from their sensing treasures grew increasingly bright. This was a sign that the sea spirit strength was increasing. They could easily accomplish this. But what startled them was that the sea spirit's strength didn't stop at all. Rather, it was terrifyingly stable, as if it didn't slow down at all. Everyone knew that for a sea spirit with a strength of 100, it was easy to raise it to 110. But to raise it to 120, the difficulty would increase. Then, as the sea spirit grew stronger, the difficulty would also increase. A stable increase in strength only proved that Jing Guanjin had formidable strength and was deliberately controlling the rate of increase. To the purple card sea spirit teachers, they knew what this meant. He wanted to increase the rank of the sea spirit. Only like this could he maintain stability and lay a solid foundation for the sea spirit's transformation. Many purple cards were startled. They were well aware of the rank of the sea spirits used in this competition. Even if they were to help, it would be difficult for them to increase their rank in 2 days. This Jing Guanjin, what formidable self-confidence! Grandmaster Wu Zetian's eyes shined with a burning heat. The reason he agreed to teach Jing Guanjin was because of his superb talent, but it was also because that great figure promised to give him the strength he yearned for in his dreams. If he could grasp this strength, he could leap into the ranks of the most formidable sea spirit teachers in the sea region. Even the other purple cards wouldn't be able to compare with him. Of course, expelling sea spirit from the top 10 purple cards was also a driving force in his heart. These two old things had an old grudge many years ago, and it was rumored that it involved a woman. As for the specifics, no one knew. Or, even if they did, they wouldn't dare to say it. Old C sensed Jing Guanjin's gaze. He sneered and closed his eyes, secretly anxious. Little friend Ning, don't disappoint me. The position of one of the top 10 purple cards wasn't as simple as whether he wanted to or not. As long as he reached this position, he would have to shoulder the responsibility. Once a purple card failed, there would be a series of reactions. Even with old C's shrewdness, he still couldn't help but panic. But this time, old C's expectations didn't come into effect. Jing Guanjin had left everyone in the dust. The treasure that represented the spiritual plant in his hand was shining with a dazzling light. But beside it, there was another treasure. It still had a gray appearance, as if it hadn't changed at all from the start until now. This caused the complexions of the purple cards to become increasingly strange. Today's competition had truly opened their eyes. There were some people who were extremely powerful, but there were also some people who seemed to have given up and still hadn't made a move. Could it be that they had really given up? Grandmaster Wu Zetian received many congratulations. Several purple cards that were on good terms with him had looks of envy on their faces, not to mention the fact that they had a good relationship with each other. But with old C at the bottom today, they didn't need to worry about Jing Guanjin's challenge. Instead, they paid more attention to his vision of accepting a disciple. For both master and disciple to enter the purple card ranks. Just what sort of glorious scene was this? For someone like them to have such a high status, to be able to find such an outstanding inheritor was something that left one's eyes red with envy. Grandmaster Wu Zetian was incomparably humble, but no matter how one looked at him, he revealed a carefree expression. He glanced at old C, thinking that after competing for so many years, it seemed that he, old Wu, had the last laugh. Under old Wu's gaze, no matter how shrewd old C was, he still couldn't help but feel anxious. He coldly snorted and stood up, taking out a spirit shell from his chest. As chief manager Wu heard this news, he was left dumbfounded. His first thought was that Mr. Ning had fallen asleep again, but he didn't need to think about it to know that this was impossible. He was well aware of just how important this match was. Then why hadn't he made a move yet? Suddenly, Chief Manager Wu stiffened. He thought about how that old Mr. had quietly left without any intention of blaming him. Could it be that Mr. Ning had already agreed to the conditions and everything that happened afterwards was all an act? As this thought rose, it was impossible to suppress it any longer. Chief Manager Wu paled and sweat dripped down his forehead. Clearwood, who had disappeared several days ago for some unknown reason, frowned. Chief Manager, what is it? Chief Manager Wu hurriedly asked old C what had happened and also vaguely mentioned his own speculations. Of course, his voice was extremely low so that only the two of them could hear him. Clearwood's complexion changed, as if she were even more nervous than Chief Manager Wu. The The two of them urgently discussed this matter and also ordered someone to find Leon. Cough, Leon, during these past 3 days, has there been anything strange about Grandmaster? For instance, hesitation or something? Leon carefully thought about it. He shook his head. No, teacher has been very normal. Chief Manager Wu spat on the inside. If even he hadn't seen anything strange, then how could a young boy like Leon possibly know? Clearwood took a deep breath. She waved her hand for Leon to leave. Leon walked out several steps and then suddenly turned back. He cupped his hands together and said, Chief Manager, Steward Clearwood, although I don't know what happened, teacher is worthy of your trust. He will definitely win. With that, he bowed deeply and strode away. Chief Manager Wu's complexion darkened for a long time. He said, At this point, we can only choose to believe him. Clearwood turned and left. Steward Clearwood, even if you choose to believe him, you still need to prepare for the worst. Clearwood didn't even turn around. I don't want my preparations to be used. But if Grandmaster Ning betrays us, then he will definitely pay the price for his actions. The gradually suspected Grandmaster Ning certainly wasn't sleeping at this time. He sat in his coral house, a vexed expression on his face. As he looked at the competition committee that had suddenly changed the rules, he gave his deepest regards. The little blue lamp was his greatest secret. Even if he had to give up this competition, he couldn't expose it. But the problem now was that if he didn't do anything and just admitted defeat, what would Sea Spirit Pavilion think? He didn't know that the icy-faced Steward Clearwood had already made preparations to deal with him, but it wasn't hard to guess. He feared that Sea Spirit Pavilion would really fall out with him at that time. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shake his head. Indeed, accidents could happen. Minor things that he didn't expect could lead to a crisis. After thinking for an entire day, in a corner of the coral house, when the time-sensing coral emitted its first trace of blue light, he suddenly covered his face and bitterly smiled. Recently, he had been refining treasures to enhance his soul. But as his soul became stronger, shouldn't he become increasingly intelligent? How come he felt that his intelligence had been pulled down instead? That's right, if the little blue lamp appeared in the outside world, there was a chance that it would be discovered by the altar. If so, then it was fine if he didn't take it out. Zhang Xian reached out and picked up the jade box placed on the large workbench. It was filled with the best nutrient fluid, releasing a faint fragrance. A stalk of 7-leaved grass was suspended within it, its roots swaying rhythmically, as if it had its own consciousness. He grabbed the jade box, and with a flash of light, it vanished from sight. Qin Yu sensed with rapt attention. If there was anything wrong, he would immediately take out the jade box. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. The altar was silent. Chapter 149. Jing Guanjin revealed his formidable strength. As the ghostly blue light of the time-sensing coral radiated outwards, the magic tool finally stopped emitting an intense strength and fell into a long period of silence. The purple cards didn't relax. Rather, their gazes became even more complex. This was because they knew that Jing Guanjin wasn't stopping here. Rather, he was resting and restoring himself so that he could complete the Sea Spirit promotion in a single go. In just a single day, all of his preparations had been completed. This speed was faster than they had expected. Indeed, the sea region had a new generation of heroes, and the waves from the front would overturn the beach. Yes, these two sentences didn't match, but this was what the sea races said. Even though the humans had pointed them out countless times, they still arrogantly ignored them. These despicable creatures that had stolen the language of the sea races and created a sea race civilization. Did they really want to point fingers at the noble sea races? Dream on. Even now, the sea spirit hadn't changed at all. In fact, the light of the treasure had dimmed a bit. This meant that as time passed, its problems had become even more serious. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's smile widened. Assassins had besieged him on the streets. Countless methods had been used in secret, and he had even spared no cost to persuade that old shark to help him. But in the end he had returned in defeat. Instead, he had been disgraced by his actions that didn't follow common sense. But now the other party had clearly bowed his head and compromised. What was the reason? Of course it was because of him. It seemed that his words about activating the examination had scared away that so-called Mr. Ning. This caused Grandmaster Wu Zetian to feel disdain in his heart, but he was also increasingly satisfied. He swept his eyes around and finally couldn't help but say, "Sealingdew, could it be that this Mr. Ning of your sea spirit pavilion has fallen asleep again? Unfortunately, the altar has been sealed off and no one is allowed to enter or leave. If no one wakes him up soon, I fear he will lose." At that time, it would really be a slap in the face. Old C's complexion paled. When it came to arguing, he had never crawled up to anyone. Although he had grown older and his status had risen over the years, he rarely spoke out against anyone. But when someone mentioned Spirit City's God rebuke from many years ago, who wouldn't shiver? In the past, he had scolded 37 sea spirit teachers by himself, and 9 of them had been taken away by ambulances. Even now, no one could surpass that. But now he really had nothing to say. He knew that the more he said, the more shameful he would be. He simply closed his eyes and pretended he didn't hear anything. Although his expression was cold and his back was straight, his heart was dark. Had the celestial spiritualists also learned to fight against cheating in the competition? The world had completely changed. Perhaps he was really old and it was time for him to give up his position. Right at this moment, an exclamation of surprise suddenly sounded out by his ear. Old Hai opened his eyes abruptly and saw that the dark and gloomy sensing treasure that he wished he could smash into pieces was now emitting a faint light. He was excited and thought to himself, "You brat, you finally made your move." Right at this moment, the sensory treasure suddenly vibrated and buzzed. Old C was startled for a moment before a happy expression appeared on his face. This was a situation that would only occur when a sea spirit received a powerful infusion of energy. Old Hai's heart dimmed, and the thought of giving up his position was immediately crushed. Old Hai felt that the world was beautiful. In particular, Wu Zetian's gloomy face. He lightly coughed, his expression indifferent. There are some people who just can't change after so many years. That wild and arrogant temper of theirs, they like to come to a conclusion early on. How many times have they been slapped in the face? Why don't they learn their lesson? Old Hai straightened his clothes and leaned back in his chair, finding a more comfortable position. This competition is far from over. They were all intelligent characters and could see that Si Lingdu was pretending to be calm. But at this time, they couldn't care about any of this. Their minds were filled with question marks. The infusion of energy was so fast that it actually caused the sensory treasure to tremble. Just what had Sea Spirit Pavilion's Mr. Ning done? Wu Zetian mask, he was as calm as water as he coldly watched the light of the treasure gradually brighten. The change at this moment naturally proved that what he had just thought was just a joke. Even the 10 great purple cards wouldn't be able to easily increase the intensity of energy. Perhaps the reason he had been silent all this time was because he was preparing for it. Yes, there were indeed some obscure sea spirit teacher inheritances that contained some inconceivable secret techniques. Wu Zetian had once seen one of them. After several days of preparation, a special energy could be injected into a sea spirit in a short period of time to achieve the effect of healing and enhancing the sea spirit. It seemed that this Mr. Ning was also someone who walked this path. That's right, that must be it. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's heart settled. Those that didn't know of this secret technique would be incomparably shocked. But those that knew would understand that it wasn't anything at all. He glanced at the calm old sea and sneered inwardly. Just wait. This sort of secret technique couldn't last long. Perhaps it would only last for a short period of time. But it simply couldn't compare with his disciple, Jing Guanjin. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's calm expression caused the other purple cards to reveal looks of surprise. If he was able to remain so calm in the face of danger, did he have some other card in his hand or something? Time quietly passed. A quarter-hour passed. Grandmaster Wu Zetian shifted his butt. He thought that this surname Ning had a bit of skill. An hour passed. Grandmaster Wu Zetian coughed, a trace of caution in his eyes. 2 hours passed. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's complexion darkened. For hours passed. Grandmaster Wu Zetian could no longer do it. No, it was more accurate to say that in this hall, none of the 10 purple cards knew how to do it. Hum, hum, the sensory treasure continued to tremble. They could also do this sort of terrifying and high-intensity infusion of energy. But none of them could do it for 4 hours without interruption. No one. But the truth was right in front of them. Strange eyes turned to Old C. As they saw his incomparably calm appearance, they began to mutter inwardly. It seemed that this old thing, Sealing Dew, knew the reason. Some purple cards that were on good terms with him carefully probed him, but they were all brushed off with a laugh. Seeing that he had no intention of speaking, they could only suppress their curiosity in their hearts. Seeing their bewildered expressions, Old C couldn't help but sigh. This was truly the Sky Spirit sage lineage. It was inconceivably powerful. After an unknown period of time, the humming of the sensory treasure suddenly stopped. Wu Zetian hurriedly looked over and coughed, his complexion becoming even uglier. The sea spirit that represented Qinyu actually had fluctuations of energy that surpassed Jing Guanjin's. Even if it was just a tiny bit, it was enough to shake his mind. No one noticed that the time-sensing coral placed in the corner had turned a faint red color. Wu Zetian's face darkened. He gently tapped the spirit shell with his fingers beneath his sleeves. Jing Guanjin opened his eyes and took out a spirit shell from his chest. This specially refined spirit shell didn't have a communication function. In addition to some careful preparations, it was possible to avoid the monitoring of the altar. At this moment, it was vibrating rhythmically and emitting tapping sounds, as if an invisible finger was gently tapping. Jing Guanjin's expression was unsightly. He hadn't expected that the spirit shell in his bosom would actually ring. This meant that his opponent's performance was better than his. Damn it! Jing Guanjin took a deep breath, a dignified look in his eyes. It seemed that his father's worries were justified. This surname Ning was indeed difficult to deal with. But so what? With the power of the Holy Spirit in hand, even if he had to face the 10 great purple cards, he would still be able to put up a fight. That's right, the heavenly spiritual power here was what Elder Hai believed to be the power of the heavenly spirit being. To continue this chapter, please turn the page. Unfortunately, the one who possessed it was not Qinyu, but Jing Guanjin. Of course, Jing Guanjin was not born of the celestial spiritualist bloodline. It was only because he had a good father that he obtained this power through some rather bloody means. Rather than saying that this match was a battle between Jing Guanjin and Qinyu, it was better to call it a battle between the power of the Sky Spirit and the little blue lamp. With a flick of his sleeves, the shining sea spirit in front of Jing Guanjin floated up on its own and pointed a finger. As his fingertip touched the sea spirit, faint traces of pale white strength constantly poured into it. The branches and leaves of the sea spirit swayed as if they were cheering, and the fluctuations of energy rapidly rose. Thus, in the royal palace's grand hall, the sensing treasure representing Jing Guanjin's sea spirit became even more dazzling. In just a moment, it overtook Qinyu and took the lead once more. This was because he was about to activate the sea spirit's advancement. The sea region was incomparably vast, and its surface area far surpassed that of land. There were countless treasures and astonishing richness. As the royal family that controlled everything, they were naturally the wealthiest family in the 4 seas. Thus, it was natural that the royal palace was luxurious. Warm jade covered the floor, bright round lamps, and sparkling jade railings. There wasn't a single place that didn't exude a sense of nobility and luxury. The great throne faced south and was carved in the shape of a coiling dragon. It was a deep purple and seemed to be made of metal but wasn't, like wood but wasn't. There was a figure sitting on the dragon throne. He wore a 5-clawed dragon robe and had an emperor's crown on his head. His face was simple and dignified, but he didn't seem angry at all. As he sat there without moving, he exuded an aura that seemed to dominate the world. He was the ruler of the sea races and ruled over the boundless sea region. He controlled the lives and deaths of trillions of sea folk, and he was the master of this royal palace. He was the most powerful person in the world. There was no one like him. How is the competition? Reporting to your majesty, both sides are currently in a stalemate. For the time being, victory and defeat have yet to be decided. The sea sovereign's eyes flashed. Oh, that's a bit strange. No one knew what he meant by strange. If his majesty didn't speak, no one dared to say anything. After several breaths of silence, the sea sovereign waved his hand. It's fine. Let it be. As for the matter regarding the Netherworld sea region that I had you investigate, how is it going? There have indeed been some changes in the Netherworld sea region. I don't know the specifics yet, but old Mr. Sand has already set out to hunt. I believe he will bring back clear information. As soon as you find out about this, immediately report it. There cannot be any delay. Yes. Where is Mr. Sand now? The sea sovereign suddenly asked. Reporting to your majesty, Old Turtle left a message saying that the weather is getting colder, so he went into hibernation. The sea sovereign was left speechless. He thought that if Old Turtle wanted to hibernate with his cultivation, then the sea would have long since frozen into a block of ice. This reason was a bit too perfunctory. He helplessly said, "He seems to be quite idle." He pushed the matter to me and is able to relax. He waved his hand. Everyone withdraw. This solitude wishes to be left alone. The sea sovereign wanted to be left alone. Of course, no one was brave enough to ask him who this quiet person was. It was just that there was no one in the hall. Even now, no one knew who he was speaking to or why he wanted them to withdraw. The hall quieted down. Only the voice sitting on the dragon throne remained straight, as if it had become one with the throne, as if it had become one with the entire hall. It was like he had been sitting here for countless years, and he would continue sitting here until the end of time. Ding! With a low ringing sound, the light on the surface of the sensing magic tool converged, turning into a pale purple. This represented that the sea spirit's promotion had been completed. Within the coral house, Jing Guanjin's complexion paled. He sneered. With the power of the sky spirit in his hands, how could he possibly fight with him? Mr. Ning? What was that? Could he eat it? Chapter 150. Qinyu, who couldn't eat it, was currently refining the 3,000-year-old sea blue flower that Old Sea had gifted him. Its medicinal efficacy was truly amazing. He secretly thought that perhaps he had underestimated its value. If he really did make a trade, then even 2 million spirit stones might not be enough. Pah! The last trace of blue on the sea blue flower vanished. The withered flower broke apart, turning into powder in his palm. Qin put away the powder. Before leaving the sea race capital city, he couldn't leave behind any flaws that would arouse suspicion. For instance, this powder. Calculating the time, night would soon arrive. Qin thought about whether he should take out the 7-leaf grass or continue bathing beneath the little blue lamp for another night. The little blue lamp had an unimaginably powerful promoting effect on sea spirits. This was something Qin already knew before he entered Sea Spirit Pavilion. If the little blue lamp's acceleration for ordinary spiritual plants was 1, then the acceleration for sea spirits was at least 10. That's right, it was so powerful that it didn't make sense. After hesitating again and again, Qin decided to have the 7-leaf grass stay in the storage bag for another night. After all, that cold and callous President Jing Guanjin was the disciple of some Grandmaster Wu Zetian. It was always better to be a bit more careful. He was full of confidence, but in the end he was slapped in the face. Qin, you didn't want this to happen to him. He flipped his hand and took out a soul-strengthening item that Chief Manager Wu had purchased from a large city in the Sea region. Qin Yu closed his eyes and began to refine it. A night's worth of time was enough to enhance his soul a little more. He couldn't waste it like this. But what he didn't know was how his decision would force our cool CEO, Jing Guanjin, to face and how miserable his fate would be. One was full of confidence, laughing at the other for overestimating his own abilities. As for the one being laughed at, he closed his eyes and began to refine it, working hard to enhance his soul. If someone were to see this scene, they would definitely laugh out loud, because this was truly a funny scene. But the following story was extremely sad. Night fell. The time-sensing coral obeyed its instincts that had existed for billions of years. Some enzyme began to transform within it, causing the last trace of red to turn into a deep blue. Thus, a foot of sea blue light quietly bloomed in the storage ring. Thus, what appeared in front of the 10 purple cards in the royal palace's main hall was that the sensing treasure that represented Qin Yu's sea spirit had gone berserk once more. That's right, such an intense and continuous infusion of energy, in their opinion, could only be described as going berserk. Grandmaster Wu Zetian had finally learned his lesson. His expression was very calm this time, and he didn't taunt or ridicule Lin Ming. Even so, as he listened to the echoing humming sound, he felt his heart skip a beat. Damn it, just who was this surname Ning? He was actually so difficult to deal with. Qin Ye's eyes widened, and he stared fixedly at the sensory treasure. The light it emitted was gradually growing stronger, and its speed seemed to be even faster than yesterday. This was simply illogical. When it came to increasing the sea spirit's energy, the more difficult it became. But what Grandmaster Wu Zetian didn't know was that this 7-leaf grass had adapted to the little blue lamp's strength yesterday. Thus it was able to absorb more energy today and increase its strength even faster. Suddenly, the vibrating sound of the sensing treasure stopped. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, the light abruptly converged and turned into a faint purple. He broke through. Without any preparation, without a single spurt of energy, Lin Ming recklessly pushed the sea spirit to a higher quality. This style caused the purple cards to grimace. This junior is so fierce. Grandmaster Wu Zetian seemed to choke on his own saliva. He violently coughed, his body shaking and coughing to cover up his current movements. Within his sleeves, his fingers quickly tapped on the spirit shell. Jing Guanjin sat cross-legged. Even though he had rested for a long time, his face was still pale. In the end, what he had seized was not for his own use. To him, activating the power of the heavenly spirit required a large amount of demonic power. Suddenly he opened his eyes, took out the spirit shell and stared at it, listening to the rapid tapping sounds. His face was full of shock and anger. His first thought was that it was impossible. Only by stimulating the power of the sky spirit could he help the sea spirit rise in quality within 2 days. But what did this surname Ning have? How could he accomplish this? But as the pounding continued, it became increasingly urgent. This clearly reminded him that this was the truth. It was impossible for Wu Zetian to play around with him. He fiercely struck the spirit shell. Far away, Grandmaster Wu Zetian seemed to be able to clearly feel his disciple's anger, so the tapping sounds came to an abrupt halt. Jing Guanjin took a deep breath and calmed his thoughts. He placed the spirit shell to the side, and his complexion returned to its cold and callous state. His arrogant attitude was indeed that of a CEO. You want to fight with me? Surname Ning, you are delusional. Bang! Boundless demonic power circulated within his body, driving the power of the sky spirit slumbering in his Dantian sea to flow through his meridians and pour into the sea spirit through his fingertips. He could clearly feel that as the power of the sky spirit entered, The sea spirit began to cheer and grow stronger. With every breath of time, its strength was increasing. 2 hours later, Jing Guanjin felt a bit dizzy. He used his other hand to strike the spirit shell 4 times. Tap, tap, tap. This was a question. How was he doing now? Soon, the spirit shell sounded out. Tap, tap, 2 sounds. The meaning was no. Jing Guanjin narrowed his eyes. He took a deep breath and clenched his teeth, dispelling the dizziness in his mind. Surname Ning, you are truly difficult to deal with. But no matter how many methods you have, you will still lose today. Sky spirit power, continue to pour into me, continue to continue. Rumble, rumble. Demonic power surged within his body. Another 2 hours passed. Tap, 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 still not enough. 6th hour. Jing Guanjin's complexion was deathly pale and his eyes were faintly red. 8th hour. Jing Guanjin tottered. He grabbed onto the workbench with both hands, desperately holding on. He had no choice but to go all out. He knew that the reason his father valued him so much was because of today's matter. If he could smoothly achieve his goal, then without a doubt he would obtain all of his father's favor, and he was destined to ascend to the highest heavens in the future. But if he failed, he had prepared for so long, paid an incalculable price, and even bestowed upon him the extremely precious sky spirit power. Jing Guanjin didn't dare to think of the consequences. Thus he could only go all out. 10th hour. Jing Guanjin's fingers trembled as he tapped the spirit shell. His hair was disheveled and his eyes were bloodshot. His luxurious robes were soaked in sweat, and he leaned against the workbench in order to remain standing. Grandmaster Wu Zetian quickly responded. Tap, tap, no. Da-da-da-da, speed up. Tap, 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 tap. This boy is stronger than you. Jing Guanjin spat out a mouthful of blood and crashed into the workbench. When his forehead collided with the spirit shell, he had already fainted. Luckily, he was immune to the stabbing pain of his head bleeding. Then he slumped to the ground. In the palace, the spirit shell in his hand nearly jumped up, frightening Grandmaster Wu Zetian. He coughed violently to cover it up, and his heart calmed. Looking at the strength he used to strike the spirit shell, Jing Guanjin's current situation should be quite good. Although he was temporarily behind, there was still a chance he could catch up. This chapter is not finished. Please turn to the next page. Looking up, Grandmaster Wu Zetian frowned. The sensing treasure that represented Jing Guanjin had fallen silent. His thoughts raced, and he was secretly overjoyed. Could it be that Jing Guanjin was still hiding some hidden card in his hands? That's right, that must be it. The reason he stopped now was to save up energy, to use his ultimate move. He was truly worthy of being that great figure's most beloved descendant. His strength was so formidable that it was shocking. If he hadn't encountered that abnormal surname Ning, Jing Guanjin would have already won. In fact, he wouldn't even need to sneak attack that old freak Sealing Do. By relying on his own strength, he would be able to seize the position of a purple card. Grandmaster Wu Zetian maintained a calm posture. He was waiting for his disciple to turn the tide at a critical moment and scare these old freaks out. As he looked at the eyes that swept over him, he remained expressionless. But he sneered inwardly. Just you wait, the competition isn't over yet. The 2 purple card sea spirit teachers that were on good terms with Wu Zetian and had received a great deal of benefits from him couldn't help but be curious. Brother Wu, your disciple hasn't fought in a long time. Is he all right? Wu Zetian had an enigmatic expression. Don't worry, Jing Guanjin is fine. He was still able to forcefully strike the spirit shell. Even from so far away, one could still feel his determination and strength. Of course, he was in excellent condition. After another period of time, Brother Wu, there's still no movement. Don't worry. Cough, cough, Brother Wu. The sun is about to rise. Don't worry, Brother Wu. The competition is about to end. Don't worry, Brother Wu. The competition is already over. Bullshit. Grandmaster Wu Zetian stomped his feet. It started yesterday in the middle of the morning, and there's still 4 hours until the competition ends. So how could it possibly end? Although they were on good terms as Purple Card Sea Spirit teachers, they were all top figures. Naturally, their complexions weren't too good after being scolded. Wu Zetian lightly said, "His Majesty personally issued a verbal decree saying that this is the end. If the competition continues, someone will die." The verbal decree had just arrived. Grandmaster Wu Zetian had been completely focused on the competition, so he hadn't noticed it. At this time, he was left dumbfounded. As for the other purple cards, they looked at him with particularly strange expressions. Grandmaster Wu Zetian shivered. He suddenly regained his composure and rushed out. His Majesty had said that if the competition continued, someone would die. This was clearly referring to both sides. As for Jing Guanjin, it seemed that he hadn't moved for a long time. He rushed out of the palace gates and rushed out of the royal palace. As he stood beneath the ancient bell, Grandmaster Wu Zetian's face was filled with grief. He watched as his disciple, who had been brimming with confidence just a moment ago, was carried down the altar on a stretcher. Jing Guanjin's robes were nearly soaked in blood. The dazzling red was like a flame that ignited all of Grandmaster Wu Zetian's anger and grievance. Who was it? Who was it that injured my disciple? In front of so many people, in the finals of a great competition, someone actually dares to injure someone. Just what sort of audacity is this? The roaring Grandmaster instantly attracted the attention of countless people. The sea race audience that had been waiting for 2 days was immediately stirred up. All of them roared out in support of the Grandmaster and demanded an explanation from the competition committee. The response of the competition committee was indeed quick. Just as Grandmaster Wu Zetian's roar fell, several committee members appeared with awkward expressions. The one leading them was committee member Gudra. There was nothing he could do about it. Everyone knew that he came from the turtle race, and the defensive power of his turtle shell was astonishing. At this time, if he was the one to speak up, he would be able to protect himself. Gudra inwardly cursed the female family members of the committee members, especially the righteous Chairman Su. He shrunk his head and said, "Grandmaster Wu, please calm down. As for your disciple's injury, we have already investigated it. It wasn't a sneak attack by someone, but he hit himself." Chapter 151. Just as his voice fell, it was immediately drowned out by Grandmaster Wu Zetian's roar. He hit himself? Are you saying that in the competition, Jing Guanjin severely wounded himself without any reason? Or is it that a high-level Golden Core Realm sea race would have such a slippery hand? The Grandmaster's eyes were cold and gloomy, as if he wanted to eat someone alive. "I don't care who you received orders from. I will definitely investigate this matter to the end. Whoever dares to shield the perpetrator will be my enemy." Committee member Gudra nearly cried. He had some status, otherwise it would have been impossible for him to become a member of the committee for the Great Sea Spirit Teacher Competition. But to a Purple Card Sea Spirit Teacher, this bit of wealth and strength was nothing at all. A casual finger could crush him to pieces. "Grandmaster Wu, even if I had the courage of the heavens, I still wouldn't dare to lie to you. It really was Jing Guanjin who hit himself." Bang! Before he finished speaking, committee member Gudra was sent flying backwards. His thick turtle shell rubbed against the hard ground of Prosperity Square, producing a series of sparks. Pitter-patter, then countless cracks appeared on the turtle shell that was famed for its defense, spreading outwards like a spider web. This scene left the other committee members pale. They gulped, thinking that they were lucky that the one who spoke up wasn't them. Otherwise, they feared they would have lost their lives. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's anger soared to the heavens. "Where is Chairman Su? Have him give me an explanation." After Gudra was sent flying backwards, the clever chairman Su finally arrived with an explanation. There was a physical examination of Jing Guanjin's body due to excessive consumption of strength. There was also proof that Jing Guanjin had lost too much blood due to an external force. Besides these, there weren't any other injuries. Chairman Su picked up the blood-stained spirit shell of good quality and earnestly said, "Grandmaster Wu, according to our comparison, Jing Guanjin's forehead wound is completely consistent with this spirit shell. Moreover, the competition was carried out on the altar and was completely sealed off. I have carefully inspected the spells and haven't found anything abnormal." "So, Grandmaster Wu, look." Wu Zetian was instantly dumbfounded. He thought back to Jing Guanjin's final response and the powerful blow that had given him confidence. So it wasn't a finger, but his forehead. This contrast was a bit too great. His complexion darkened like rain. After a long time, Grandmaster Wu snatched the spirit shell, clenched his teeth, crushed it to pieces, and turned to leave. A committee member whispered, "This is the evidence," Chairman Su interrupted. "That's enough. It's understandable that Grandmaster Wu is angry for a moment. As long as you explain it clearly, everything will be fine." This shell was too hot. Once it was discovered, it was bound to cause trouble. He didn't want to bring trouble to himself. Bringing it here was giving others a chance to destroy it. Now is the right time. It was unknown whether Jing Guanjin was alive or dead, but the result of the match was self-evident. Grandmaster Wu Zetian was filled with anger, burning his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys with a burning pain. Thus, in this state, he was particularly disgusted by the cheers he heard. He gloomily looked up and saw that it really was people from Spirit Pavilion. One of the black-robed figures was surrounded by the crowd, receiving congratulations. How glorious! Grandmaster Wu Zetian's complexion became increasingly ugly. He strode forwards. Steward Wu was overjoyed. He was ashamed of his previous doubts. When he saw the person walking toward him from the corner of his eyes, his expression changed and he looked nervous. "Greetings, Grandmaster Wu." There was only one Grandmaster surnamed Wu that could cause the chief manager of Spirit Pavilion to treat with such respect and awe. Everyone stopped cheering and hurriedly lowered their heads to greet him. They looked at his purple robe and the purple plate on his waist. His heart was filled with uneasiness and uneasiness. After all, this great figure that stood above the highest heavens was Jing Guanjin's teacher. Moreover, he had a lot of opinions about their Spirit Pavilion. Could he have come to pick a fight with them? As expected, Grandmaster Wu Zetian didn't disappoint them. He coldly sneered and stared at Qin Yu. "I have no idea what method you used to win, but I will definitely investigate this matter. It's best if I don't find any evidence that can be used against you." Even a purple card couldn't maintain a high intensity of energy for several hours straight. Yet, this surname Ning had such a relaxed appearance. If someone said that there wasn't something fishy going on, old Wu wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. Of course, even if there wasn't a problem with his status, this surname Ning could only accept it. Even if he couldn't do anything, he would at least feel a bit better. It wasn't that Wu Zetian was bored, but that his heart was suffocating right now. If he didn't vent some of it, he feared he would suffocate to death. After all, only he knew what Jing Guanjin's defeat meant to him. The power of Sky Spirit. This was something he had dreamt of for countless years. Just as he had thought it was within reach, it had suddenly become nothing more than a bubble. For old Wu to be able to maintain his reason and not tear apart this black-robed boy who was deliberately trying to mystify him, he felt that he was already a very shrewd person. Just what sort of status did the 10 great purple cards have? To the common sea folk, they were like gods. Thus, when Grandmaster Wu Zetian appeared with a gloomy face, the audience fell silent. Even those rich young masters of the capital city, who were gloating over Jing Guanjin's misfortune, suppressed their emotions and remained silent to show their respect to Grandmaster Wu. Because they were too far away, they originally couldn't hear Grandmaster Wu Zetian's voice. But the finals were far too important, and all the spells were activated to prevent anyone from interfering in the match. During the post-match inspection, one of the sound amplifying arrays used to make sacrifices to the sea spirit had been activated at this time. It was unknown whether it was because someone had slipped or something, but it happened to open at this time. Thus, Grandmaster Wu Zetian's voice resounded throughout Prosperity Square. In that instant, everyone's eyes gathered on him. Wu Zetian was startled, as if he hadn't expected his voice to spread out. But he soon composed himself. With his status, there was no need for him to care about these things. Rather, the more people heard, the more embarrassed this surname Ning would be. He felt a bit carefree in his heart. Chief Manager Wu squeezed out a smile. He stepped forwards. Grandmaster Wu, you must have misunderstood. Mr. Ning, Wu Zetian remained expressionless. Who do you think you are? When I am speaking, do you think you can interrupt? Chief Manager Wu's face flushed red. He took several deep breaths, his smile becoming even more forced. That's right, even though he was being mercilessly reprimanded, he still had to smile. This was the third ranked of the 10 great purple cards. Even if he knew that he was hostile towards Sea Spirit Pavilion, he still didn't dare to offend him. This was the instinctive awe that the entire sea races had towards purple cards for countless years. Chief Manager Wu was a member of the sea races, so no matter how high his status was, he was no exception. Leon felt injustice for his teacher. His eyes widened, but he could only suppress his words in his heart. Everyone from Sea Spirit Pavilion had to lower their heads in fear. But there was an exception here. He wasn't a member of the sea races, so he didn't care much about purple card sea spirit teachers. Thus, the incomparably cold and lofty Grandmaster Wu Zetian, who stood there with his hands behind his back, had suffered an unexpected blow. Qin Yu lightly said, Chief Manager, may I ask who this person in front of you is? Chief Manager Wu was dumbfounded. Old C had personally seen Qin Yu before, so he should be familiar with the clothing of the purple cards. In addition to this person's aura and address, how could he not recognize him? His first thought was that Mr. Ning was angry, so he didn't follow the rules. He was secretly anxious. To offend a purple card in such a public place was far too serious a matter. But there were some words that couldn't be said clearly. He could only turn and glance at Qin Yu. Mr. Ning, the one in front of you is the third-ranked purple card, Grandmaster Wu Zetian. You absolutely cannot be disrespectful. The underlying meaning was, Big brother, let's not mess around and hurry up and lower our heads. Qin Yu nodded, seeming to understand. So it was Grandmaster Wu. I'm lucky that Chief Manager reminded me. Otherwise I would have thought it was some ignorant old fart that didn't know the rules of etiquette and would have hurled insults at him. He cupped his hands together. Grandmaster Wu, I don't understand what you said before, but that doesn't matter. It's just that you aren't hurrying over to see Jing Guanjin. So how come you have the time to waste with us? Chief Manager Wu covered his face. He knew it. He knew it would be like this. The entire Prosperity Square fell deathly silent. All of the sea folk stared with wide eyes, disbelief written all over their faces. How could you dare? Grandmaster Wu Zetian was so angry that his entire body trembled. At this time, his thoughts were no different from those of the ordinary sea folk. How could this surname Ning dare? How could he dare? But whether or not he dared was meaningless at this time. After all, this person had already done it, so of course he dared. Ignorant old fart that didn't know the rules of etiquette. It doesn't matter if I don't understand. I'm just wasting my time here. Although these words seemed ordinary, they contained far too much malice. And because of this ordinary tone, it seemed that Ning Zetian didn't place him in his eyes at all. Since when had someone dared to offend him like this? Grandmaster Wu Zetian suddenly calmed down. Mr. Ning, you have truly angered me. Countless sea folk who heard these words shivered. It was like an electric current had spread from their tailbone to their entire body, leaving them numb and cold. Then, besides the pale faces of those from Sea Spirit Pavilion, the eyes of all the sea folk brightened. They seemed to have already expected that a lively scene would arrive. Mr. Ning, who had offended a purple card, would be hung up and beaten, and his final ending would be miserable. In fact, even the people of Sea Spirit Pavilion thought this way. It was just that while the sea folk had guessed the beginning, they hadn't guessed the ending. The entire process and direction of events were completely different. This was because, at this time, Qin Yu also calmly said something. "Grandmaster Wu, you have already angered me since a long time ago." What did he mean? What did he mean? He dared to speak such ruthless words to a purple card. But soon after, the sea folk realized that not only did Qin Yu dare to speak such ruthless words, but he also put them into practice. He turned around and looked at Chairman Su, who had been watching from the sidelines for some time and didn't want to get involved in these muddy waters. "Has the match result come out yet?" Chairman Su frowned. He thought that Qin Yu wanted to use this to humiliate Grandmaster Wu, and he regretted standing so close to the front. But he couldn't dodge at this time. He could only maintain his calm and dignified expression and say, "According to the judgment, Mr. Ning, you have won this match." Qin Yu had won, and he had lost. He didn't mention Jing Guanjin's name because he had to be tactful. He hoped that the narrow-minded Grandmaster wouldn't bear a grudge against him because of this. Qin Yu didn't know that Chairman Su was worried and wished that he could leave right now. He continued to ask, "In other words, I now have the right to challenge a purple card." "That's right. In half a month, you can choose a time." Qin Yu interrupted him. "No need." He lifted a hand and pointed. "Old thing, I've found you displeasing to the eye for a long time. You today." Chapter 152. Whether it was the match with Jing Guanjin or the final challenge of a purple card, to Qin Yu there was no difference. In the end, he would win. Qin Yu had underestimated how extraordinary a purple card was. The status and attention that came with this status was enough to place him in the limelight. Since he was sure to win, he might as well be a bit more high profile and attract attention ahead of time. Only then would he not be suspected after he obtained a purple card. Simply put, he wanted to use this high-profile method to add another layer of camouflage to himself. This was because it was impossible for a problematic person to do something like this. Of course, his dissatisfaction with Wu Zetian was also one of the reasons. The right to test, sorry, I won't give you that chance. If Prosperity Square had been quiet enough when Qin Yu taunted and ridiculed them, then now it was so quiet that not even breathing could be heard. All the sea folk seemed to be frightened. They stood there in a daze, forgetting to breathe. It was only when a sea folk couldn't hold it in any longer that they took a deep breath that it seemed to start an avalanche of chain reactions. Nearly 1 million people sucked in breaths at the same time. With a loud rumble, there was quite a bit of momentum to it. Chief Manager Wu seemed to have a stroke. Several gurgling sounds came from the depths of his throat. If even such a fierce character was scared to such a degree, then it could be imagined just how panicked and shocked everyone else was. For instance, Chairman Su. As one of the peak nobles of the capital city, he had a close relationship with the royal palace. He had experienced countless twists and turns in his life, and he had even witnessed the bloody years when the throne changed. Perhaps it was a bit exaggerated to say that he wouldn't bat an eyelid if Mount Tai collapsed, but his calm demeanor wasn't something that the average person could compare with. At this time, his mouth was slightly open. Although his instincts told him that this appearance was far too ugly, he couldn't force himself to obediently close his mouth. That old thing, in the records of the sea races, there had never been such a scene of someone pointing at a purple card and cursing at them. Of course, there would be after today, and no matter what the result was, it would be a thick brush stroke in history. For such a scandal to appear in the annals of the sea race's history, it could be imagined just what sort of state Grandmaster Wu Zetian was in right now. If anger could really burn, then the current old would be like a sun, and the brightest kind at that. His face flushed red, turned purple, turned blue, and finally became expressionless. His eyes were so gloomy that they seemed as if he could eat someone. "Junior, I guarantee that you will regret this. Qin Yu's voice was light. Your master and disciple styles are quite similar. Shooting your mouths off is just too annoying. Wu Zetian laughed in anger. Good, good. Chairman Su, since this junior has challenged this old man, then according to the rules, I will be the one to set the topic. Chairman Su had a solemn expression on his face, as if he knew nothing. That's how it should be. Wu Zetian flipped his hand, and 2 lotus seeds appeared in his palm. These 2 lotus seeds were obtained not too long ago from a withered blue sea lotus. When the main body died, these 2 lotus seeds hadn't matured yet, so they were innately damaged, and it was extremely difficult for them to germinate. So, the topic is to cultivate lotus seeds. Chairman Su personally examined the 2 lotus seeds with the other committee members. They confirmed that the 2 lotus seeds were almost exactly the same, and they left their respective marks on them. No problem. Mr. Ning, do you have any objections to this topic? In truth, these words weren't necessary. This was because the topic would be chosen by the challenged Purple Card C spirit teacher. This was a rule that had been passed down through the ages, and if there was any objection, then that was the same as forfeiting. Grandmaster Wu Zetian remained expressionless. Junior, if you are worried, then you can have the first pick of the 2 lotus seeds. Old Wu was enraged. He wished he could tear Qin Yu to shreds, but his reason remained clear. Even Jing Guanjin, who possessed the power of the Sky Spirit, had been forced into such a miserable situation. From this, it could be seen that, in terms of healing and strengthening sea spirits, this surname Ning did have some skill. Luckily, the scope of a sea spirit teacher's work wasn't limited to just this. For instance, cultivating lotus seeds. There weren't many sea spirit teachers that were skilled in cultivating sea spirit seeds to begin with. This was because it required a great deal of time and effort, and the investment wasn't proportional to the harvests. Besides a small number of sea spirit teachers that focused on this, most ordinary sea spirit teachers only had a rough understanding of it. Unfortunately, in his early years, Old Wu had been crazily infatuated with cultivating sea spirit seeds for a period of time. Afterwards, he hadn't given up on it. After becoming a purple card sea spirit teacher, status and wealth were no longer things that bothered him. He began to secretly cultivate sea spirit seeds, trying to find a way to improve himself in this aspect. Thus, Grandmaster Wu Zetian was filled with confidence. Challenge him? This junior was asking to be humiliated. Beneath the black robes, Qin Yu lightly said no. Chief Manager Wu hesitated, but with things having reached this step, there was no room for him to interrupt. Gratitude surged in Clearwood's eyes. Her lips moved, and she said in a low voice, "You can do it!" However, even as she said these words, she didn't have the confidence to do so. Since Wu Zetian had chosen to cultivate sea spirit seeds, he must be skilled in this aspect. But Qin Yu had never revealed anything in this aspect. Leon's face flushed red. "Teacher, you can definitely win." Wu Zetian coldly sneered. He flicked his sleeves and walked away. He no longer had any interest in saying anything more. These were just a bunch of frogs in a well who didn't know the immensity of the heavens and earth. He would let the facts speak for themselves. Qin Yu smiled. He patted Leon's shoulder. "Once teacher wins, you can try a bit harder, and you'll be able to win over Miss Qingqing." He winked as he spoke. Leon's face flushed red. He didn't know what to say. As the surrounding people of Sea Spirit Pavilion saw him joke around with his disciple at this time, they didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the same time, they secretly admired him. Mr. Ning, he was truly worthy of being Mr. Ning. At the very least, his courage wasn't something the average person could compare with. Unfortunately, something like courage didn't increase one's strength at all, inside and outside of Prosperity Square. Countless sea folk were stirred up. The match between Qin Yu and Jing Guanjin had been far too dull and boring. In particular, that cold and ruthless young Master Jean hadn't displayed any of the domineering aura he had and had instead nearly tripped himself to his death. It was simply shameful. Luckily, Grandmaster Wu Zetian was about to make his move. He was a purple card sea spirit teacher, the incarnation of unparalleled sea spirits in the world. Indeed, Grandmaster Wu Zetian wasn't someone who would disappoint. Chairman Su, as a purple card sea spirit teacher, not only are we the spiritual faith of the vast majority of sea spirit teachers, but we should also shoulder the corresponding responsibility. So, I will make this challenge public. I hope that this will be able to help some sea spirit teachers and give them some harvests. The cheers shook the heavens and earth. In the crowd, the countless watching sea spirit teachers trembled with excitement. Some of them even had tears streaming down their cheeks. To be able to watch a purple card sea spirit teacher fight, what sort of lucky chance was this? Chairman Su readily accepted the advice. He first expressed his thanks on behalf of the vast majority of sea spirit teachers, and then spoke several words of righteousness, calling him a role model for his generation. With a glance, a servant immediately turned and left, notifying the two little bastards who only knew how to enjoy themselves at home to hurry up and come over. For a purple card sea spirit teacher to personally demonstrate, this was an opportunity that only came once in 100 years. Even if they couldn't learn anything today, when they spoke to others in the future, they could still shamelessly say that they had once studied under Grandmaster Wu Zetian. A teacher for a day was still a teacher. Even if Grandmaster Wu didn't know, it was fine as long as they knew in their hearts. Grandmaster Wu Zetian regained his composure. He lifted a hand, and the waves of cheers soon subsided. A cold light flashed in his eyes. "Junior, do you dare to do the same as me and do your homework in front of everyone?" Qin Yu shook his head. Old Wu had a cynical expression. "Could it be that you don't dare?" Qin Yu lightly said, "I don't dare. This involves the secrets of my sex inheritance. Although I am unworthy, I cannot casually reveal it without permission." Old Wu was stabbed once more. He stuffily coughed in disappointment. He originally thought that the young were proud and arrogant, and that this surname-ing wouldn't allow himself to suffer a loss. But he never imagined that his provocation would be completely useless. In any case, his original intention was to improve his reputation. As long as he could easily crush this junior, the humiliation he suffered just now would vanish into thin air. In fact, he could even use this chance to further his reputation. Grandmaster Wu flicked his sleeves. "Then let's begin." Qin Yu said, "Hold on." Grandmaster Wu sneered. "Are you afraid?" Qin Yu lightly said, "The topic is up to you. When the competition begins, that is up to me." Grandmaster Wu stuffily coughed. Chairman Su coughed. "Mr. Ning does indeed have this authority. When will the competition begin? And how long will it last?" Qin Yu said, "Since someone wants to publicly teach me, I will give him a chance to display himself. The competition will begin in 3 days. Once I am well rested, I will begin." Chairman Su hesitated. "Don't worry, I will only rest for a day at most." Chairman Su nodded. "Good. Let us first prepare the field." Grandmaster Wu chose the altar. The highest quality workbench was quickly assembled, and all the supporting equipment was the latest and most advanced model. Then, the committee cultivators began to lay down an isolating array formation to prevent outside disturbances during the work. Of course, the isolating array formation was unidirectional. Grandmaster Wu's voice could pass through, and the outside world could clearly see the details of his work. Outside Prosperity Square, at the intense request of the sea folk, the broadcasting array formation was aimed at Grandmaster Wu. After being authorized by the royal palace, the entire process was broadcasted live to the capital city and the surrounding areas. Qin Yu chose to stand below the altar. This was because he felt a bit uncomfortable on the altar. There was no basis for this feeling, nor was there anything wrong with it. Perhaps it was just a psychological reason. The coral house was moved over. The committee cultivators hurried in and out, cleaning and arranging everything. Qin turned and boarded the carriage. Chief Manager Wu hesitated for a moment, but in the end he didn't follow. Since things had come to this, it was too late to say anything. It would be better to let Mr. Ning rest a bit longer. Perhaps he could even win the challenge? Thinking of this, Chief Manager Wu bitterly smiled. The chances were slim. Clearwood suddenly stepped forwards. She respectfully bowed. "Greetings, teacher." Old C nodded. "Rise." As Chief Manager Wu saw this, his heart shook. He finally understood Clearwood's background. No wonder she had disappeared several days ago. It was likely that she had gone to take care of Old C. He hurriedly bowed. Old C waved his hand, sending away the group of people. "Where is little friend Ning?" Clearwood said, "Mr. Ning is resting in the carriage." "Teacher, what do you think of this challenge?" Old C sneered. "Old Wu is narrow-minded and narrow-minded. It's good that little friend Ning chose him. Otherwise, even if he won, he would still be manipulated by his examination authority. As for the result," he paused for a moment. "Although I hope that little friend Ning will win, his lineage is indeed lacking when it comes to cultivating sea spirit seeds. Humph! Old Wu is quite astute. I thought he would lose his sense of propriety in his anger." Chief Manager Wu bitterly smiled. "Old C, you also don't think so?" Old C didn't directly answer. "Concerning my matter, what compensation did Sega City give?" The target was naturally Qinyu. Chapter 153. Chief Manager Wu explained the matter of the 30 million spirit stones. Old C waved his hand. "You are too stingy. Tell the madam that little friend Ning is worthy of her investment. In the future, she will surely repay her generously." He thought for a moment. "I heard that little friend Ning purchased a massive amount of soul-enhancing materials. Tell the madam that we can start from this aspect." Chief Manager Wu respectfully nodded. Clearwood sighed inwardly. Since her teacher said this, there was no doubt that he wouldn't win this match. She had followed her teacher for many years and could roughly guess what he was thinking. See, spirit teachers needed to accumulate experience and grow stronger as time passed. Mr. Ning had an illustrious background, and at such a young age he was able to save and strengthen sea spirits. If he had such a formidable strength, then correspondingly his other aspects would be greatly reduced. His opponent was also the third-ranked purple card. Even if he was from the Sky Spirit Sage lineage, his chances of victory were slim. As the coral's red light dimmed and faded away, Qinyu pushed open the door. Countless eyes were focused on him, and he was instantly startled. The competition staff was already waiting at the side. They hurried forwards to ask questions, and after obtaining a positive response, they hurried away. The great bell hummed, echoing throughout the square. "Challenge, begin!" Grandmaster Wu Zetian opened his eyes, a brilliant light exploding from them. He stepped onto the altar. His robes fluttered in the wind, and the purple card at his waist shined. Whether it was appearance or momentum, it was impeccable. Cheers rose like a tide. He looked down from above, his eyes dignified and indifferent. "Junior, I will finally let you know what a purple card is." Qinyu looked up at him. He lightly said, mouth off. Such a majestic speech was actually met with such a response. Countless sea folk told themselves that this was the greatest humiliation to a purple card, so they should be angry. But why did they feel an inexplicable sense of joy? Old C had a helpless expression. "Your actions will arouse public anger." Qinyu smiled. "I don't care." Old C shook his head. "Brat, has anyone ever told you that your current actions are asking for a beating?" "It's more than a beating. I think Grandmaster Wu wants to eat me right now." Old C laughed. "At least you have some self-awareness. Little friend Ning, you have truly offended him this time." His laughter faded. "But I like it. He took a step back and cupped his hands together. Little friend's graciousness today. Sea Spirit will forever remember it. In the future, little friend's matters are my matters. I want to see just who can move against you. These words weren't hidden at all. In such a situation, it was the same as giving Chinyu the greatest promise possible. In the future, anyone that tried to harm him would be the enemy of Sea Lingdu. Chinyu smiled. Then I'll have to thank Old Hai. Then he clasped his fists and left. Looking at his back, Old Hai suddenly sighed. Looks like you have no intention of staying. Chief Manager Wu's complexion changed. Old Hai means Little Friending is an intelligent person, so it's impossible for him not to see that although he seems to be targeting Wu Zetian on the surface, the truth is that he is questioning the status of all purple cards. The 10 purple cards themselves aren't anything special, but behind them are practically all the powerful factions of the entire sea region. They spent countless years to establish their status. So how could they be casually shaken? Chief Manager Wu bitterly smiled. He finally understood that Mr. Ning definitely had thoughts of leaving, so he had acted according to his heart. His face was cloudy and uncertain. No one knew what he was thinking, but a hint of hesitation appeared in his eyes. Old Hai lightly said, "You can truthfully report this matter to the madam. She will make a choice." Chief Manager Wu revealed an ashamed expression. He nodded, no longer speaking. To continue this chapter, please turn to the next page. In the coral house, Chinyu sat down cross-legged. With a flick of his sleeves, he placed the blue sea lotus seed in his storage ring. At some point, the thumb-sized lantern began to bloom with light without warning. This light didn't instantly bloom. Rather, it slowly spread out like flowing water, circle after circle. It finally covered a radius of a foot. The blue sea lotus seed trembled, as if it were jumping up and down in joy. It absorbed the deep blue light with all its strength. Or it could be said that this light contained some sort of strength. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths, time passed. After an unknown period of time, lines began to appear on the surface of the lotus seed, twisting and turning like ripples in water. After determining that there weren't any problems, Chinyu drew back his divine sense. He took out a soul-strengthening treasure and continued to refine it. The 300-year sea blue flower that Old Hai had given him was extremely effective. If it weren't for the fact that the time wasn't right, Chinyu would have tried refining a 4th 5-element spiritual object right now. Thinking of the sea spirit baptism, he smiled. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before the 5-element spiritual objects gathered in his Dantian Sea altar. Grandmaster Wu also began to move. He revealed the strength of a purple card sea spirit teacher, his every movement like a textbook. No, it should be said that his movements were even more classic than a textbook. Every movement he made flowed like clouds and water, every link perfectly grasped. The blue sea lotus seed floated in the air, covered in circles of light. As Grandmaster Wu waved his hands, it gently swayed back and forth as if it had a mind of its own. Countless sea spirit teachers were entranced. They sighed inwardly at the strength of a purple card. Their minds were completely immersed in this, completely unaware of the passing of time in the outside world. Although the ordinary sea folk didn't understand Grandmaster Wu's level, they still found the scene on the altar to be pleasing to the eye. As time passed, changes began to appear on the lotus seed. It seemed to grow, and the slightly withered lotus seed began to slowly become plump. Then, lines began to appear on its surface. More and more lines began to appear, gradually linking together. In the void, the sound of waves began to appear. This caused countless sea folk to cry out in alarm. Finally, Grandmaster Wu stopped. He closed his eyes in meditation. The silent sea spirit teachers also began to wake up one by one. Many of them had excited expressions. It was clear they had obtained some harvests. They wanted to immediately return and verify their thoughts, but they also didn't want to leave and miss out on what was about to happen. All of them had conflicted expressions. Sir Sea Spirit Teacher, why is Grandmaster Wu's lotus seed emitting the sound of waves? A young miss from the capital city asked. She had a maid beside her, and judging from her clothing and jewelry, she seemed to have a good background. Of course, this young miss was also beautiful. Thus, the disturbed Sea Spirit Teacher frowned and patiently explained, "The blue sea lotus isn't a high rank, but when the lotus blooms, the shadow of the sea will appear. Thus, it is famous in the sea region and is considered a special and precious sea spirit. This lotus seed is congenitally deficient, so it should have been difficult for it to germinate. But with Grandmaster Wu's miraculous hands, this congenitally deficient defect has been made up for, and the strength contained within has risen dramatically. The sound of waves is caused by the internal strength of the blue sea lotus dispersing." His face was full of worship. To make up for the congenitally deficient defect isn't easy at all, but Grandmaster Wu is actually able to make its internal strength so abundant that it disperses on its own. Such methods are simply incredible. The surrounding people were stunned, although they didn't understand. Since everyone seemed to understand, they also had to pretend they understood. They absolutely couldn't allow others to look down on them. Thus, as the sea folk looked at the altar, their eyes filled with awe and reverence. Over at Sea Spirit Pavilion, Old Sea had a dignified expression. After a long time, he gently sighed. Originally, he had some hopes in Qinyu, but now he had completely let them go. Although he disdained Wu Zetian's character, he couldn't help but acknowledge that Wu Zetian was incredibly strong. In the aspect of cultivating a sea spirit seed, he had actually hidden such an astonishing strength. On one hand, he felt pity for Qinyu, but on the other hand, he also felt guilty. If it weren't for him, Qinyu wouldn't have come up empty-handed in the end. According to Little Wu, Wu Zetian originally had no interest in the Great Sea Spirit Teacher competition. He had only chosen to participate for the Sea Spirit Baptism. Sea Spirit Pavilion's compensation was Sea Spirit Pavilions, so he couldn't do nothing. Old Sea took a deep breath. He turned to look at Clearwood and whispered something to her. Clearwood nodded without hesitation. I've wronged you. I originally wanted to leave this thing for you." Old Sea revealed a guilty expression. Clearwood shook her head. "Teacher is too serious. This disciple doesn't care about such things." Old Sea was comforted. He thought that in the future he would have to find some good things to compensate this well-behaved disciple of his. After resting, Grandmaster Wu opened his eyes. His expression was calm and serene. He ignored everyone's gazes and continued to cultivate the lotus seed. His movements were smooth like flowing water, pleasing to the eye. A day passed. Another 2 days passed. In the blink of an eye, the third day arrived. On the altar, Grandmaster Wu flicked his sleeves. The lotus seed in front of him trembled, and the lingering light around it was instantly sucked away like rivers flowing into a river. Hum! Hum! The lotus seed cried out, and vast waves rose up. Grandmaster Wu lifted a hand, and all sound faded away. The lotus seed slowly fell into a jade box. His eyes were tired, and a faint smile lifted his lips. Perhaps it was because of anger, or perhaps it was because of the ups and downs in his mood, but his performance this time was unprecedentedly good. The lotus seed in front of him didn't have the slightest bit of its previous dullness. It was bright and clean, and the textures on its surface wove together like waves of mist. The light it emitted was like translucent jade. Grandmaster Wu sighed. When he looked up again, his eyes were as bright as stars. He looked around with disdain, brimming with confidence. The result of this battle hadn't been decided yet, but he knew he would win. Looking around, he could see the other purple cards. These old things that had mocked him before now all had dignified expressions as they cupped their hands together. Jing Guanjin had lost, but he, Wu Zetian, wouldn't lose. The status of a purple card was above the highest heavens. No one could question it. Mr. Ning? What was that? Could it be eaten? Indeed, those that could become master and disciple were extremely similar in terms of character and temperament. Even their thoughts were the same. If Grandmaster Wu Zetian knew that the disciple he was so proud of had also had this thought not too long ago and had ended up in such a situation, he didn't know whether or not he would be able to maintain his confidence. Of course, there were no ifs in this world. Thus, things that were destined to happen would follow a fixed path, silently advancing until they exploded. The committee of the competition quickly responded. Chairman Su and the others, accompanied by the priests, personally stepped onto the altar. They first congratulated Grandmaster Wu and then quickly inspected it. They took out the mark and compared it with each other. After determining that there were no problems, they all revealed looks of praise. If they could become committee members, then disregarding everything else, they had good eyesight. This blue sea lotus seed was simply flawless. It was a top-quality product amongst top-quality products. Congratulations, Grandmaster Wu. Grandmaster Wu's strength is extraordinary. When a Grandmaster takes action, it is truly extraordinary. As they congratulated each other, their faces bloomed with smiles. Although they didn't say anything, their meaning was clear. They favored Grandmaster Wu. Extremely, extremely favored him. No one was blind and no one was an idiot. Nearly all of the Sea Spirit teachers praised in their hearts Grandmaster Wu Zetian. Third-ranked purple card. His reputation was well deserved. Hashtag, 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 hashtag today my child wasn't feeling well. After rushing back from the hospital, I had to go eat something. Chapter 154. Old C was silent, not saying a word. Chief Manager Wu had an ugly complexion, and Clearwood had a bit of helplessness on her face. Even they believed that the result had been decided the moment Wu Zetian withdrew his hand. There was still some time until the end of the competition. But was there a need to wait? More than one person had this thought. Then they turned to look at the committee members. Chairman Su coughed. He maintained his composure. 3 days haven't passed yet. Mr. Ning can continue. I don't think Grandmaster will mind. Old C had already said that whoever targeted Mr. Ning was targeting him. The smart old Su didn't want to stir up trouble for himself. In any case, his words were reasonable. Grandmaster Wu Zetian had a calm expression. He said, "It's fine. I'll wait for this junior for a bit." Before his voice fell, he was interrupted by a yawn. The door to the coral house opened, and a black-robed man stepped out. As I thought, old people slow down. I slept for a long time and only came out now. At this moment, many sea folk were left speechless. How could something like sleeping come out of his mouth? And at this time, did you think we would believe you? Stop bragging. Many eyes turned cold, revealing a bit of disdain and schadenfreude. They thought to themselves, "You are so arrogant now, but you'll be crying later." In front of Grandmaster Wu, could you even take out that blue sea lotus seed? TSK, TSK, I'm really looking forward to it. The booing was like a tide. Qin Yu suddenly had a thought. His lips curved up and he lightly said, "It looks like many people aren't satisfied with me. Then, do you want to make a bet?" Chief Manager Wu covered his face. Here it comes again. Just what time was it? And he still had such thoughts. Beside him, Clearwood also had a speechless expression. Old C asked a few questions. After obtaining a response, he couldn't help but shake his head and bitterly smile. Little friend Ning seemed to be quite confident in himself. Chairman Su coughed. "Mr. Ning, I'm afraid this doesn't conform to the rules." Grandmaster Wu waved his hand. "It's fine. I also want to know how Mr. Ning wishes to make a bet. It's simple. I think I will win. If you don't believe me, you can bet on old Wu. If I win, everything will be mine. If I lose, I'll have to compensate you." Qin Yu smiled. "Old Wu, do you want to make a bet as well?" Grandmaster Wu wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled, his eyes filled with benevolence. "Good. Since a junior like you dares to open a bet, wouldn't it be unfair if I didn't place my bet?" He turned around and waved his hand, and a few people flew out from the square to the altar. Let's see just how much money I have on hand right now. Grandmaster Wu Zetian was a purple card. Just how rich was he? He naturally had a specialized financial manager. Soon, the chief financial officer replied, Master, you have 75 million spirit stones that you can use. If it's not enough, you can use more. Grandmaster Wu turned his head, a faint smile on his face. Junior, did you hear that? Are you going to accept this order? Whoosh! The square was in an uproar. 75 million spiritual stones was a terrifying amount of wealth to anyone. Perhaps only the royal palace and the top clans with deep foundations could afford it. The sea race was wealthy, so they liked to gamble. Gambling was prevalent in the capital city, and there had always been no lack of large sums of money. But 75 million spiritual stones was unprecedented. Qin Yu smiled. I accept, of course I accept. Since old Wu is giving me money, how could I not accept it? His eyes turned. Then, is there anyone else who wants to place a bet? Here, everything in the arena counts. Aining will take it all. You really want to accept everything? Can we go down as well? An old tycoon wearing a thumb-sized jewel, who was surrounded by beauties on both sides, asked loudly. Qin Yu lifted a hand and pointed. Of course, I will accept anything that is on the field. Bet me 1,000,000. The rich man was indeed curious. He took out a handful of spirit stone cards from his chest. I will also place a bet. Record 100,000 for me. 50,000. I will also place 30,000. The capital city never lacked wealthy people. Although no single large bets appeared, in the blink of an eye, countless arms waving spirit stone cards appeared, forming a dense forest. With such a guaranteed chance to make a fortune, no one was willing to miss out on it. Grandmaster Wu's expression became increasingly happy, as if he could already see the tragic scene of Qin Yu's life of debt piling up into a mountain. However, this still didn't seem to be enough. His eyes flashed, and old Wu smiled. Junior, the number of bets placed today will be an astronomical number. What guarantee do you have that you can compensate us? Qin Yu nodded. Old Wu, what you say is correct. Since you have open bets, you should give a guarantee. Just as he was about to say something, Old C's light voice sounded out. I will guarantee little friend Ning. Chief Manager Wu clenched his teeth. My Sea Spirit Pavilion will also guarantee Grandmaster Ning. Grandmaster Wu Zetian's eyes flashed with a sharp light. Sea Lingdu and Sea Spirit Pavilion should be enough. I have a great residence in the capital city. The market price is 30 million spirit stones, so I will appraise it at 25 million. That will be 100 million. If I win, I want Sea Lingdu's courtyard in the East Ring. Old Sea lightly said, Very well, I agree. Grandmaster Wu Zetian was satisfied. Everyone, if you trust me, then you can make your move now. The 7th-ranked purple card, Sea Lingdu, and Sea Spirit Pavilion will guarantee compensation. I want to place a bet. Hurry and help me record it. 10,000 spirit stones. I will also place 10,000. Chief Manager Wu took a deep breath. He ordered people to begin collecting spirit stones. Gambling was a popular custom amongst the sea races, so they naturally didn't lack gambling tools. After paying the spirit stones, one would obtain a special gambling receipt. This sort of gambling receipt was specially refined and was extremely valuable in itself, and no one could copy it. The sea spirit teachers that temporarily served as accountants had high standards, but today their complexions paled. As they looked at the bets being placed, they began to sweat profusely. Soon, several terrifying bets were placed. The sea spirit teachers that took over were dripping with sweat. They didn't dare to make decisions on their own, so they looked for Chief Manager Wu. Chief Manager Wu looked at the bets, and his vision darkened. He forcefully maintained his composure and clenched his teeth. Accept as much as you have. Since he had already stepped out, it was impossible for him to back down. He could already imagine how bitter he was in his heart. Old C, this bet is far too great. You have to save me. An hour later, all the bets were totaled. Chief Manager Wu glanced over them and found it hard to catch his breath. The sea spirit teacher responsible for recording the bets handed over the account book and then fainted. No one looked down on him. Rather, they felt a bit envious. At the very least, he didn't need to be so frightened after fainting. At this time, many sea spirit teachers couldn't help but have such thoughts. Perhaps it was time to consider changing jobs. Chairman Su was expressionless. His silence contained a trace of helplessness, as if he were helpless towards the farce in front of him. It was impossible to see that he had secretly ordered someone to place a massive bet of 500,000 spirit stones. Of course, he placed it on Grandmaster Wu. With a light cough, Chairman Su said, "Grandmaster Wu, Mr. Ning, if you two have no objections, then please take out your lotus seeds." Prosperity Square, there was a deathly silence. Everyone craned their necks and stared with wide eyes, unable to take their eyes away. This was no longer just a challenge to a purple card, but a heaven-shaking gamble. The amount involved was astronomical. It concerned the vital interests of countless sea folk. Wu Zetian's lotus seeds had already been examined, so now they only needed to examine Qin Yu's. Seeing Qin Yu express his agreement, Chairman Su gestured for him to enter. Qin Yu flipped his hand and took out the jade box. Everyone's eyes widened. In the next moment, everyone felt their hearts relax. Those sea folk that had placed their bets all smiled with joy. As for those that had been hesitating, they were all pained. Within the jade box, although the blue sea lotus seeds were plump, the markings on their surface were shallow, without the least bit of mystical energy. At this time, as the competition staff inspected the area, they discovered that there wasn't even the sound of waves. The outcome had been decided. Countless sea spirit teachers made their judgment. As they looked at the black cannon, they revealed looks of pity. They thought that this Mr. Ning would likely carry a heavy debt on his back, even in death. How pitiful! There were also sea spirit teachers that looked at Old Sea and Chief Manager Wu. Old Sea was one of the 10 great purple cards and had a transcendent status. He wasn't someone they had the qualifications to judge. But Chief Manager was normally a shrewd character. So how could he be so impulsive today? This time, it seemed that Sea Spirit Pavilion's capital city branch division would have to change managers. Old Hai. Chief Manager Wu, who had been sentenced to death, had a deathly pale face. Old Sea had no expression. "Don't worry. I will exonerate you from this matter." However, as he thought of his life's accumulations as well as his most beloved house, his lips couldn't help but twitch. Grandmaster Wu Zetian stood with his hands crossed behind his back, his eyes calm and indifferent. In the face of such a great victory, countless sea folk secretly admired him. They all thought that a grandmaster was truly a grandmaster. They had to admire him. To judge whether a seed was good or bad, the most direct and powerful evidence was to see it germinate and grow. The competition staff had prepared cultivation fluids that were used to accelerate the growth of the seeds. They were of the same quality and were placed on 2 workbenches. The broadcast followed at the same time, ensuring that the exciting scene that would be passed down to countless people in the future could be clearly seen. Chairman Su saw that the lotus seeds were ready and coughed. "Grandmaster Wu, Mr. Ning, would you too like to?" In the stands, it was unknown who was the first to shout out, "Grandmaster Wu!" Instantly, the response was like a tide. Perhaps it was because they were grateful to the Grandmaster for helping them win wealth. But they were all incomparably diligent. Their billowing voices seemed as if they could overturn the entire sea. Chairman Su was also in a good mood. He didn't mind selling a favor at little cost. Moreover, this was something proposed by the masses, and he was only following the will of the people. "Grandmaster Wu, what do you think?" Wu Zetian faintly smiled. Since everyone is so cordial, then I will throw out a brick to attract jade. Just look, this Grandmaster really knew how to speak. But once the stone was tossed out, some people wouldn't have the face to continue. The staff of the competition staff carefully took out the lotus seed and placed it in the cultivation fluid. In the next moment, the cultivation fluid in the jade box began to tumble about like boiling water. The strength contained within was absorbed by the lotus seed, and a light, cracking sound spread out. The lotus seed broke through its shell. Tiny roots drilled out at a speed visible to the naked eye, rapidly growing and extending. At the same time, a tender sprout drilled out, twisting and growing. 1 leaf, 2 leaves, 3 leaves, countless sea folk were left dumbfounded. They looked at this miraculous scene. Chapter 155. The entire growth cycle of the blue sea lotus seemed to have been shortened to just a few breaths of time. Grandmaster Wu had a light expression. He reminded everyone, the nutrients in the nutrient fluid are about to run out. Everyone was startled. The originally light blue nutrient fluid had turned transparent like clear water. Chairman Su waved his hand. Someone immediately rushed up and began to pour in the nutrient fluid again. But this wasn't enough. Before long, the nutrient fluid ran out of nutrients once more. Without needing Chairman Su to say anything, someone else went up to add more. Then a third time, a fourth time, all the way until the 5th time. Everyone was shocked as they looked at the blue sea lotus on the workbench. It grew to the height of a person, and its lotus leaves were as green as a bucket. As the lotus leaves swayed back and forth, the sound of crashing waves filled the air. But at this time, what was most astonishing was not the lotus leaves, but the massive flower bud that was like a moon surrounded by stars. It moved again, and finally began to slowly bloom. The deep blue light was like a boundless sea, the delicate petals gently trembling. Thus, on this lotus flower, a soul-stirring scene appeared. Space seemed to twist, light seemed to change, and water vapor seemed to linger around. The phantom of a boundless sea appeared, the waves tumbling about, the scene so real that it made one believe that such a sea really did exist in this world, and that the strength of the blue sea lotus was only presenting it. The blue sea lotus. When the lotus bloomed, it became a blue sea. This was the reason why it was so famous. In a breath of time, the lotus seed broke, the lotus leaves grew, the lotus stem grew, the lotus flower bloomed. Who had ever seen such a scene before? After a long period of silence, it was broken by earth-shaking cheers. Countless sea folk shouted out Grandmaster Wu's name, showing their highest respect and worship to this incarnation of the sea spirit in the world of mortals. At this time, Wu Zetian was the center of the world, receiving everyone's attention. His expression was light and carefree. He faintly smiled and nodded in thanks. Thus, the cheers became even louder, so loud that they could be heard deep within the royal palace. In that inconceivably luxurious hall, the sea sovereign slowly opened his eyes from his dragon throne, a thoughtful look on his face. This Wu Zetian has some strength. If he doesn't fall too deep, he can stay behind. There was no one in the hall, but a respectful voice sounded out. Yes, your majesty. To alarm the sea sovereign and even cause him to change his mind, it could be seen just how formidable Wu Zetian's strength was. It was so strong that it made everyone forget that this was a challenge. It was like Grandmaster Wu's solo performance. But in the end, not everyone could forget it. For example, Chairman Su. After a moment, when Grandmaster Wu had obtained enough prestige and worship, he turned and said, "Mr. Ning, it's your turn." Grandmaster Wu was considerate. He raised his hand and pressed down, causing the cheers to quickly disperse and everyone's eyes to focus on him. "Junior, at this point, do you know what regret is?" The black-robed man was silent. Just as everyone thought he was frightened and hesitant, a cold sneer spread out. "Old thing, you really have a lot to say." Whoosh! Countless members of the Oceanic clan were in an uproar. They seemed to have never imagined that he would still dare to act so arrogantly even at this moment. The condemnation was like a tidal wave, accompanied by countless curses. Beneath the black robes, Qin Yu's expression was calm. He thought to himself, "If you want to curse me, then curse me a bit. Consider this a bit of comfort in advance." As he thought about how he would be able to obtain a massive amount of wealth with a single stroke of inspiration, he was incomparably happy. Even the curses in his ears became cute. Chairman Su waved his hand. One of the committee members coldly snorted and tossed the lotus seed into the nutrient fluid. He thought to himself, "How dare you offend Blackbird University like this? This chapter is not finished. Please flip the page. Master, wait until you are defeated. Then I will see what kind of expression you have." Of course, this committee member had bet 50,000 spirit stones. That was the entirety of his wealth that he had accumulated over the years. If he won, not only would he be able to solve his housing problem, but he would also be able to buy a superior carriage. His life would be complete. Towards Qin Yu, he didn't have the least bit of a favorable impression. Unfortunately, the matters of the world weren't controlled by one's likes and dislikes. Thus, as the lotus seed fell into the nutrient fluid, it instantly erupted with absorbing strength that caused it to boil over. That's right, don't rub your eyes. I'm talking about you. No matter how much you rub your eyes, it's still true. Gulp, gulp. As if it had been starving for countless years, the lotus seed began to gulp down in great gulps, as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas, shaking the heavens and earth. Pa! The lotus seed broke open, took root, and sprouted. Everything was like a replica of what had just happened. No 8C spirit teacher with keen senses and an accurate grasp of time secretly compared the two and suddenly felt his field of vision darken. The growth speed of this lotus seed was even faster than Grandmaster Wu's lotus seed. As this sea spirit teacher thought of the 10,000 spirit stones he had bet, he felt as if a knife were slicing through his heart. He hurriedly tried to persuade himself. This was only temporary, only temporary. This lotus seed would soon slow down. Then his eyes widened as he stubbornly stared at the blue sea lotus that was wildly growing in the nutrient fluid. His face paled until there wasn't the least bit of blood left in it. He felt as if a great stone was pressing down on his chest. His breathing became increasingly difficult, and every breath he took was accompanied by a bone-chilling cold. His body felt as if he had fallen into an icy lake. The blue sea lotus continued to grow. It continued to grow, and it continued to grow. At this time, the committee member's body swayed, as if he had forgotten that he should pour in the nutrient fluid. Black-robed reminded him. Then, he could only helplessly do it himself. He took the nutrient fluid he had prepared and filled it in himself. There are some people, I don't know if they were born with this, but they are so unreasonably confident. But I would like to ask, why are they so confident? In this absolutely quiet environment, his light voice was particularly grating to the ears. Originally, I wasn't planning on opening bets. After all, I have no enmity with anyone here, so how could I possibly plunder everyone's money? But there are always people who find me displeasing to the eye. So, those who bet on me to lose are all innocent and have been implicated. I'm really sorry about that. Wu Zetian paled. He clenched his teeth for a long time and then roared out, "Junior, don't be so arrogant! You haven't won yet." Qin Yu stood up straight. He turned and looked straight at him. "I will win." As if to confirm his words, a lotus bud quietly bloomed between the deep green lotus leaves. Then, another sea region appeared in the void. It roared and raged, as if it were coldly mocking the cheering crowd. At this time, countless people in Prosperity Square held their hands against their chests. It wasn't because they were shy or cute, but because their hearts were truly about to shatter. Their spirit stones as if they were fading away. Wu Zetian clenched his fists. His pupils shrank and his teeth creaked as he gnashed them together. He never imagined that he would be forced to this step. Just like Jing Guanjin. "Stop! Stop! Stop for me. The heavens seemed to hear Wu Zetian's roar. After the blue sea lotus bloomed, it slowly returned to tranquility. Like a drowning man suddenly obtaining fresh air, Wu Zetian took a deep breath, feeling as if he had been reborn. He had never felt such tension and oppression before. Just a little bit more, and his purple card status would have been taken away. The consequences of that were terrifying to the point that he couldn't imagine them. Luckily, he was just a little bit off. This chapter is not yet finished. Please turn to the next page. He glared at the black-robed man with hatred in his eyes. This junior's thoughts were truly ruthless. Not only did he want to take away his purple card, but he also wanted to plunder his wealth. 100 million spirit stones. Even his own net worth would shrink by a great deal. Inside and outside of Prosperity Square, countless people sucked in a deep breath. Soon there was a loud rumble. I've survived a calamity. My purse is safe. My spirit stones. Countless sea folk had tears in their eyes. They felt as if the world was truly beautiful. Chief Manager Wu clapped his hands together, as if he wished he could rush forwards. He said again and again, "Just a little bit more, just a little bit more." As he thought about the wealth that was quietly piling up in his storage shell, he felt as if his heart would explode. Clearwood sucked in a deep breath. "It's good that you didn't lose." Old Sea laughed. "That's right, it's good that you didn't lose. Little friend Ning, I never thought you would have hidden yourself so deeply. It seems I underestimated you." Chief Manager Wu scratched his head. I really can't accept this." Clearwood lightly said, "Think about what would have happened if you had lost." Chief Manager Wu was instantly enlightened. If one had the heart to lose, then not losing, that was winning. Chairman Su's expression shook. He looked deeply at Qin Yu. "Mr. Ning, it seems that you and Grandmaster Wu are tied. Of course, we will immediately send someone to carefully inspect the 2 blue sea lotuses and see who is superior and who is inferior." His words were a bit more respectful and careful. No matter where a powerhouse was, they would always be respected. And in his opinion, Qin Yu was someone who could roam through the highest heavens. The committee members glanced at each other. They had already made a decision in their hearts. If Grandmaster Wu had the advantage, then he would certainly be judged to have one. But if it was about the same, then it would be a tie. In short, he couldn't lose. What nonsense! Who didn't secretly want to make a bet? Although the committee members were wealthy, none of them were willing to give away their shining white spirit stones. Beneath the black robe, a light voice said, "There's no need." Grandmaster Wu's heart shrank. A foreboding premonition rose in his heart. He lifted a hand and pointed at the blue sea lotus. "I think I've already won." As his voice fell, the beautiful lotus rapidly withered and fell off, revealing a blue lotus pod. The blue sea from the void slowly poured into it. With a popping sound, the lotus pod split open and a lotus seed slowly rose up. It was full and smooth, as if it were carved from peerless jade. It hung in the air, sprinkling down a faint purple light. This was because this lotus seed was purple. Qin Yu lifted a hand and beckoned towards the lotus seed. It hesitated for a moment before flying into his hand. This scene left countless sea folk dumbfounded. It was like a storm was stirring up in their minds, causing rumbling sounds to reverberate through the air. In the legends, the sea spirit was invisible and intangible. It was one with the sea, and because of its compassion, it allowed the sea races to be born. Thus, the strongest ability of the sea spirit was to bestow spiritual sense and open up spiritual wisdom. The 10 great purple cards were known as the incarnations of the sea spirit. They could pass down their inheritance for countless generations, and there were over 100 of them. But there were far too few that could achieve the spiritual bestowal realm. Every one of them was a powerhouse amongst the purple cards. They were said to be able to communicate with the sea spirit, and their status was a level higher than other purple cards. It had already been 1,000 years since the last purple-card sea spirit teacher with the ability of spiritual bestowal appeared in the records of the oath. Today, in Prosperity Square, where sea spirits were sacrificed, countless sea folk had witnessed the birth of a spiritual bestowal realm sea spirit teacher. Chi Yu didn't know what sort of stir he had caused, but from Chairman Su's shocked expression and Grandmaster Wu's pale face, he guessed that this wasn't a bad thing. Thus he turned around and said in a soft voice, "Then did I win?"